Hey everybody, Ken Plume here, and welcome to another edition of Force 5, the show where I have a very special guest on and we discuss their top 5 Star Wars action figures, collectibles, anything goes, as long as it's Star Wars, any scale, any era, it's all up for grabs because it's just about the conversation. And today's conversation is with an incredible guest, Kayte Sabicer, who is a master model maker, painter, craftsperson, just an artiste extraordinaire, is here with us today. And thank you, Kayte, for being on the show.
Thank you so much. No one has called me an artiste before, and now I think that will be my preferred descriptor going forward. Thank you so much.
That put it on all the business cards that people no
Yes,
longer have.
yes.
Is it awkward now? Were you in your industry? Was there ever a sharing of business cards?
Oh, definitely. Definitely they were still sharing. In the last I think at Silicon, I had a few people give me their cards and I was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome." I felt so special to hold something in your hands, you
Does
know?
it feel like a generational thing?
Um, Possibly, if so, then I'm dating myself because I actually quite like it. I like to have that physical reminder because I forget so quickly about things.
You
So
encounter so
if
many
it is
people at shows like
generational,
that.
yeah, yeah. I think if it is generational, then it's of my generation too.
Or it's coming back ironically
There you
with
go.
with the
Yeah.
kids today. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna carry cards again. It's all about physical media. It's how I feel I made a connection on an emotional level
Oh yeah.
with someone that I've
Oh
met for the
yeah.
first time. Also, where's that card? I can't find that
Yeah,
card.
exactly. Now there's the step further. I get the card and I go, "Ooh, I like it. I have a card." And what do? I take a picture of it. It's like so then I have a digital copy too.
Surely that
Yeah.
must be a function of iPhones and phones now to automatically ingest the information from a photo of a
Yes.
card, right?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
haven't
at
even
least for
tried it
me
because I
and
haven't seen a business card in forever now.
yeah, it's my perfect way of utilizing technology to still be an old person. Where I'm like, I need to have it in front of me, but also I'm gonna lose this
That
immediately.
sounds like a TED Talk. That sounds like the
Right?
perfect topic for a TED Talk.
All right. All right. I'll put that in my list of possible TED Talks.
So let's talk a little bit about sort of I alluded to it in the intro, and I hope people know, and if they don't, they should go look out the work that you've done and the information about it. But you are, I'm fair to say, a master model maker, at least by my assessment of anyone who can do anything with models or painting, which is beyond my skill set. So to me, everything you've done is a master
Ah,
class. So
thank
how
you so
long have you
much.
been sort of even interested in doing crafts in that arena?
I interested since childhood for sure. I definitely was a constant maker of any kind. I was, teaching myself to solder, so I soldered an Eiffel Tower out of paper clips. I,
How old were
would
you when
build.
you did this? Because I can't imagine like a 5-year-old. Like, I need a
No,
soldering
that
iron. I
that was probably, I mean, my dad was probably being responsible and made me wait till I was like 10 to use the soldering iron. um, I was, taking it a step further. I didn't have just a standard doll's house. I was constantly making new, places to then just put these dolls. I didn't exactly like to play with the dolls, but I like to build them a place for them to sit. Um,
so you're
so
a fan
yeah,
of
definitely.
environmental building.
Yep. I like to create immersive spaces and just making some fun things to look at.
Well, that's Kate's bedroom. No, this is an immersive space. This
Yes.
is
I actually did line my entire ceiling of my bedroom with colored Christmas lights so that I could just have it there all the time and I could like lay on the floor and just stare into like, what looked like rainbow stars to me.
I mean, it certainly does
So,
seem to be the function of a creative mind to want to decorate an environment in an immersive fashion. Which you
yeah.
certainly see,
I
even in cubicle culture within creative companies,
Yep,
you see how that manifests itself.
exactly. There's something about creating a space for yourself that puts you in the right mindset for whatever it is you need to do or want to do, or just where you like to spend your time. I mean, if we're spending the the majority of our time in any given spot. It might as well be one that fills us with happiness or a sense of ease, or, like, I assume you enjoy looking at all the things that make you happy, hence the things that are on display behind you.
Yes, it would
No?
be rather awkward if that way I can justify it in my mind. I enjoy looking at this.
Yes. It's not a form of self-torture.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, this is how we
Yeah.
break the addiction. This is how
Yeah.
you got to stop this. We're just going to keep loading it in
Yeah.
until you.
Or a severe phobia. That would be a better one. Yeah,
Yes,
you're
yeah.
terrified of all of them.
Sure. Now I'm wondering what the term is for a fear of collectibles.
Ooh, there
Because
you
there
go.
must
There's your word of
be
the day.
a term for it.
Yeah.
Knickknackophobia.
Ooh, I like that. Tchotchkophobia.
I love tchotchkophobia. Well, we've coined it if it doesn't
Yeah.
exist. Now it's tchotchkophobia.
Yeah. Put
So,
that on a sticker.
so what then sort of was the evolution of your sort of maker space? Do you recall, like, did you have like a little area in your bedroom that was set up to do projects?
Um, yeah, I actually kept shoe boxes under my bed full of my supplies. And of course, in a pinch, I would then empty that shoebox and turn that shoebox into the structure of whatever I was trying to build. Um, and I absolutely loved being in the garage with my dad. So I, was always welcome there. And my grandfather built me my own toolbox when I was about 8, maybe, and gave me a few little bits of starter tools. And so I had a space in the garage, I had a space in my bedroom, and then, much to my mother's dismay, usually the entire living room floor if I felt like it. I wanted to be around people and still like have the TV on in the background. So I would gravitate towards those common areas, and it would just obviously drive her nuts.
What was the most overwhelming project that you recall to sort of taking over the house?
Um, let's see. I would say the day I saved up, I want to say it was about $100, so it was a lot, but I saved up and bought this really nice set of Lincoln Logs. When I was like 6 or 7, I was quite young. I'd saved up all my birthday money over the past few years, and I bought this set of Lincoln Logs that I really just wanted to build, my Taj Mahal or something, some
Your
grand
Lincolnton.
architectural project. Yeah. Yeah, maybe Lincoln Memorial would have been a more fitting example there. But yeah, and I just exploded because I needed to see every kind of piece that I had. I was basically my introduction to knolling. I needed to lay them all out in front of me and separate them by size and kind, and then like really I couldn't make up my mind of exactly the floor plan I wanted, so it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and suddenly there was nowhere anyone could step without a Lincoln log underfoot.
Do you still have those Lincoln Logs?
Uh, my parents might. I should actually check with them. That would be quite sweet because I even had this special like plastic kind of container for all of them because it just definitely outgrew the cardboard box it came in.
Were you precious about the things that you'd make to where like it's done, I want to preserve this as the thing I made, or was it instant tear down to build the next thing?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm quite sentimental like that and nostalgic. So you would think that I would have been, but maybe in the best foreshadowing possible of my future life, I was totally about the teardown. So, you know, fat fast forward to, spending 4 months building a model and then watching it explode on screen and being like, yes, this is what it was meant for. No
I mean, in
regrets.
the industry, you really can't be sentimental about the things you build.
No, I mean, I still have sentimentality towards the jobs, and so I'm definitely the little garbage rat who's picking the pieces of things out of the trash that they were just gonna throw away. And I'm like, oh, I want to save this little memento. Um,
Is there
you gotta have a
anything that
little memory.
you could go back and go, I want to save that thing? If you could travel back and say one thing that was
Oh,
blown up or destroyed or ruined.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, for the most part, all my favorite projects I do have something from. I wish maybe I saved a part of so I worked on the Tumbler, the Batmobile for Dark Knight Rises. And I saved a part that was significant to me because I had scratch built it. It was like this sort of roof rack thing, or maybe it was like part of a windshield wiper. I wasn't exactly sure what it did, but I made it. And so I picked that out of the rubble and I saved that and I go, okay, well, this is my part of the Batmobile. I have it and I know I have it and I know that I worked on it and that's really sweet. And later I realized maybe I should have gone for something that was slightly bigger or more recognizable or like more significant to the function of the vehicle. Whereas this, I'm like, oh, it's just my little, it's seriously like this big. Um, but it was I'm still happy I have it. I think if I could pick something that I didn't get, I worked for on a stop motion feature in San Francisco directed by Henry Selick, who did Nightmare Before Christmas, and Coraline. And that production 2 years in got shut down by Disney. So just it will never see the light of day. I don't even, because I was a good girl and I did not take photos of things because I was told not to. I don't even have real photos of my work from that film. And I know that all of that stuff got boxed up, put in a warehouse, and has never been looked at again. And I'm like, I should have just, taken one of the little bushes I had made for the set that I was really proud of. I developed like a new technique for dyeing this fabric and then using laser cut paper for the leaves and I airbrushed it all special. I was really proud of those bushes. So yeah, I wish I'd saved a bush from the Shadow King, never to be seen movie.
Or you pull up in the van and you tell Norm and Adam to get in, and you're going to go find that warehouse and you're going to go find those models.
Oh, that would be so sweet.
The
Yeah, I would
ultimate
love to do
tested
that.
video is finding the lost
Yeah.
models from that film.
They'll know exactly how to find us because we'll just be wearing Adam's incognito costume. So you'll just
Yes.
look for like
Well, also they'll see
Chewbacca,
the YouTube video.
Totoro. Yeah.
Wait a minute, the evidence is right
Dang.
there.
Yeah.
That wasn't sneaky at all. And the piece is also on her shelf in that one video she did too.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. You're gonna see it. Our vanity will be our downfall.
As was foretold. Uh, so, of the things that you've built, what was the thing that you have the most emotional attachment to?
Oh, that is a really good question. I would say, is this for a movie
Anything,
or
anything, or you could answer
oh,
it in all
oh.
directions.
I would say for a movie, the thing I have the most emotional connection to, actually there was something on Cinderbright on the Shadow King that I got to sculpt what was going to be a Halloween mask. So it was a creature who I lovingly nicknamed Cephalobob. It was like this weird kind of hammerhead shark thing. And I had never done a lot of sculpting before, and somebody asked me to do it, and I felt so excited that they wanted me to, and then proud that it came out really well. And then when I sent it off to be molded and casted, somebody from the mold room came back to me and said, I had to do a test pull first. And so I have this little resin casting of your creature. Do you want it? And I was like, oh my God, I do. And so like they made me a little casting of the head of Cephalobob. And that was, I don't know, everything about that felt very much like I made it in my career. I can do what I'm tasked with doing. This thing is going to be in a movie. How cool is that? And now, like, I've made friends and they want me to have a little memento of it. So I think that's something I'm super attached to.
And it was involved in a learning experience outside your comfort zone. So
Yeah,
you sort of expanded your knowledge and skills.
totally. Yeah, that was extremely sort of pivotal for me. But I think um, back in my previous time in LA, working on sort of the bigger projects, um, kind of along the same vein, I made on Hugo. We did a quarter scale train, that like crashes through a train station and actually recreates a famous crash from the late 1800s in France. And I was tasked with making a leaf spring. And I'm not gonna lie, that was the first time I'd ever heard those words before in my life. I did not know what a leaf spring was. I kind of understand it now, like the way that like I've had it explained to me, its purpose and how it like distributes some of the weight and whatnot. But I was tasked with making this leaf spring, and I totally faked it. I was like, yeah, of course I know what a leaf spring is. Yeah.
Have
Made
you
a
ever
thousand
said
leaf
no?
springs.
Isn't that the whole thing about you never say no,
Oh
you
yeah.
can't do that.
No, you always go, oh, totally. Yeah, I can definitely do this thing that I've made lots before. I know what I'm doing.
Every movie I've
Um,
made one of these things. It's like, oh, it's
yeah,
boring now.
yeah, they call me Mr. Leaf Spring. Yeah, so I made a leaf spring, and what was cool was that they molded my pattern and cast up a bunch of them, and then there were like multiples all along the train. And so every time I see pictures of that train, or I see the video of it crashing, I'm just like looking in between the wheels, and I'm like, oh, there's my spring, there's my spring. Like I worked on a fair number of things on that, but that one I felt like ownership of. I was like, oh yeah, those are mine.
Does that model still exist?
Um, I want to say yes. For the most part, those big models like that, they're owned by the production company. So even though we totally created them at the studio I was at from scratch, when it's done, we have to like put them on like a custom made pallet and then ship it back to whoever the producer is or whoever has expressed an interest higher up the chain. So, and we actually did that with the train because twice, because we shot the exterior scene first where it crashes out the window and we thought we were done. And then they came back to us and we're like, actually, we need some interior shots. So we're going to bring you back this train and build more stuff and make it do things again. And we're like, oh,
So it was
okay.
a real testament to the crate and how well it protected the train, first and
Yeah,
foremost.
they know what they're doing. I mean, we already crashed it, so there's not much more
Yeah.
you can do to
And it's an
it.
interior shot. You don't have to worry how the exterior looks.
Yeah, that is the hard part is when you do something where you have to get multiple takes out of something that you're basically intentionally tearing apart. With the tumbler in Dark Knight Rises, the whole thing was that it crashes through the ceiling and then comes to like a smashing stop at the bottom with all this rubble falling on it. And I think we did that take like at least 3 or 4 times. So every time it dropped down, then it would be like me and my friend Jonathan were kind of like in charge of the vehicle. So then it would be like us swooping in, get it back to our station and start figuring out like what broke off, what paint chipped, like
Now, do you do that
what
by
needs to
memory,
be
or do you
fixed.
have like how well do you document what it looks like
Um,
at the
we
beginning?
we have we have our Bibles, that usually we're using as our reference book, and I'm pretty I'm trying to think of the word for it, fastidious. I don't so I go a little bit overboard with my reference and getting things absolutely right. So I'm usually on those jobs in charge of the Bible. So I'm going through, the photos that they sent us of the full size thing, whatever it is we're building. I have every single angle imaginable photograph taken of this already. And I'm going through it and I'm comparing this to this and seeing like what the difference is. So yeah, if probably by the second or third time that we dropped it, we knew what to look for, or we were like, nobody's gonna miss that panel. So,
Is there anything that
but
you thought for sure would break, but proved to be a rock on any of the things you've
okay.
done? It's like so resilient. Like, why won't this?
So actually, there's a terrible story from I worked on Inception, and the I don't know what level it is, sixth or seventh dream level down. They're in this snow fortress, and that was built full size in Canada, but just a facade. And so we were tasked with making a seventh scale model of this, which was still like 2 stories tall. And there was a tower standing out front of it. That was the whole point of the scene. Is the director said, so the way we want it to work, I don't care how the explosives go off, but there's going to be explosives all around, blah, 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 blah. And then this tower explodes and then the tower falls. And that's like the real pivotal thing we want to see. I don't care how you make it all happen, but I want to see explosions in this tower falling. So we started on this job. We are making 2 of these fortresses, just, so that you can always have a second take. And we get everything set up, line it with all the explosives. We're like, half of us are sitting on the roof so that we can actually watch this, because this thing is massive. And they start calling it out and they're like, okay, you go. And so like the pyro starts here, the mechanical stuff starts to fall here. You see this building totally falling apart in a big sea of flames, and a very resilient tower. It's just standing there like mocking us. Like this whole thing is going, there's no way to stop it now. And that tower is still standing. So of course, naturally, our crew chief is losing his mind. The one of the owners of the company is like screaming. Everybody's losing their mind, going, oh, well, we have this backup, but like that's it, and if this doesn't work, I don't know what to do. So they go back, they add even more explosives. They make sure they check all of our mechanical rigging so that the metal arms are all going to drop at the right time. They pack this tower so full of explosives, like I was afraid to even get near it. And just for good measure, they just attach like a rope, and they have one of the guys standing off to the side, and he goes, if this thing doesn't fall, I'm pulling it down.
I thought for good measure you were going to say someone tasked you with running over to kick it.
Yeah, exactly. Probably. Yeah, it's just standing there with a rock.
Yeah.
And thankfully, they hit go. The explosions start happening. The arms start falling, and this tower just lights up and crumbles. And I don't think anybody has ever cheered as loud as all of us watching that. And we're going, well, thank God, a bird didn't fly out of it or something that totally blew the shot, because we didn't have any backup plan after that.
Although it would have been incredible if a full-size bird flew out of that scaled model.
Well,
have you had that happen before, where real wildlife has ruined a shot?
Pretty much. That's why we purposely went up, and somebody with a broom went through the whole model and just was like going around to make sure there wasn't a bird, because we knew that could totally ruin it. I haven't had it happen to me. By the way they were really afraid of it, I have a feeling it happened to somebody else on my crew before.
I don't know. There's something about Inception that I think would have been plussed by a squirrel running like mad from those explosions towards camera.
Yeah, it's just a typical. I don't really get what Christopher Nolan was going for, but I'm sure it meant something.
Do you remember the squirrel? That's like his signature, man. There's a squirrel running from an explosion in every movie. It's a giant squirrel.
Perfect. Yes.
Now I just want to see that from Christopher Nolan. Where is that?
I'm just imagining from Dunkirk, like just like squirrels falling from the sky.
I just imagine this one lone squirrel running as each thing gets set off and just dodging all these near misses and leaping at the camera at the very end. And the last thing you see is just his tail covering the lens.
Oh, yeah. I'd watch that. It's a heroic squirrel.
So what was the first film you worked on? Like, what was your introduction to the industry?
Film I worked on was actually, so I wasn't even a model maker. I was in the costuming department, and I worked on a movie called Inalienable. And it was a sci-fi movie written, produced, and starring Walter Koenig, also known as Chekhov from the original Star Trek series. And everybody in the movie had a sci-fi background. So it was this like really low budget, not great script, sci-fi movie, but it was like I think Marina Sirtis
Sirtis?
was there. She was amazing. Erica Bari was there. Richard Hatch was starring from Battlestar Galactica. Just literally every person in that had a
Surely Bill
sci-fi
Mumy must have
background.
been there. I can't imagine it not having Bill Mumy somewhere in there with a
I,
Walter
you
Koenig
know, I
project.
can't say for sure, but
But I'm going to be
I'm
watching
just
it
gonna say
tonight.
yes.
For
Right. Oh my God. Well, the funniest thing is the premise of the story. So you would think, so it's a sci-fi movie. You would think you understood the title, but the concept of it is that this man is impregnated by an alien. He has the baby, he falls in love with it, he bonds with it, and then the government takes the alien away, like because they want to study it. And so he goes to court to fight for his inalienable right
to his
to his
child.
alien son. Yeah. So
So
it's
it's
got
mainly just a
layers.
court drama.
Half. Yeah, it's pretty much like the whole time I felt like I was on the set of Law and Order. I was like, ooh, this feels just like the courtrooms in Law and Order. Like it was pretty great.
I'm on this sci-fi movie. We're going to make like spacesuits and all kinds of. Wait, where? What?
Yeah. Yeah. But just it's like 95% in a courtroom and then some flashbacks. Yeah.
It's all off the rack. We're just going to go shop at Ross. We
Pretty much.
keep the budget down.
Yeah.
You have $10. Ask if they can
Yeah.
bring their own clothes. So what was your first
Honestly, I
introduction
think some of them did.
into the special effects side of it? Did you pursue it, or did it sort of
Oh yeah, for
happenstance?
sure. So I one of my professors in film school was CJ Strawn, who is an amazing production designer for like all of the Friday the 13th movies, like after the first one, or like pretty much as they get crazier and crazier. And I told her, I said, you know, I'm studying production design, but it feels too hands off for me. I'm very much like I need to use my hands. But my other film professor, Larry Paul, who's the production designer for Blade Runner and Back to the Future, he made it very clear that set decorators are like lower level human beings, and that's just not an acceptable line of work that I should go into. And I was like, and even then, you're still just like placing stuff around, you're not making anything. And she goes, you would make a really great model maker. And I was like, I mean, that's not still a job though, right? Like, obviously, I wanted to do that my whole life, but like, people aren't still doing that. I know that all the biggest studios have closed. And she was like, no, they're definitely still doing it. And I know somebody who can get you into it. And so she hooked me up with a guy who was like, well, I don't have anything, but actually, I know that they need interns at New Deal Studios. And so I started interning there. And then, like, the minute I graduated college, they were like, you're hired. So I started there interning and then just immediately rolled in as a paid employee. So it was pretty great. I mean, it was a rough commute for a while. I had to be there at 7 a.m. I think it took me about 2 hours
Oh,
to get
geez.
there from school. So
So not a lot
it
of
was
sleep.
rough. Yeah, and then I'd have classes till 10 every night. So it was rough.
And that was for an
You
internship with them.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to bust your butt to stay in school when you already have the job you want. But I was like, I'm so close to getting my degree and I'm so much in debt. Like I just
I
need this
have to
piece of
justify this
paper
somehow.
to make it worth it. Yeah. And I'm glad I did stick it
Is
out.
that paper at
And
least
then
framed and hanging up?
it was, I actually, I unfortunately suffered a house fire a few years
Oh
ago.
no.
So, at some point I should probably reach out and get a replacement diploma.
Then don't make this one super fancy.
Yeah, and like out of asbestos or something.
Yeah. Well, you're a
Yeah.
maker. How would you make your
Yeah.
diploma? If you
I
had your
mean, I
druthers.
would probably, you know what I would do? I have actually no experience using this tool, but to make a really cool one that would withstand being in my shop, I would probably use a water jet and cut it out of metal.
So as soon as you get your replacement,
Yeah, yeah.
Surely Test
I
could
will.
get their hands on a water jet, right?
Oh no, they have one, for sure. And my friend Jen Schachter has learned it inside and out. So I'll probably be tasking her with doing that
So
for
that's going
me.
to be an incredible video of your replacement
Yeah,
diploma being water jet
exactly.
engraved to make
Yes,
a
yes.
long-standing
Because
diploma.
most things in my shop don't hold up so well over time. So it would be nice to have one that I could actually keep. Because, most people keep their diploma in their office or in their place of work. And I'm like, all right, well, mine needs to be in here with me where I make all my stuff. And it needs to hold up.
I look forward to that tested video as well.
Yes, yes.
So before we get into your choices, let's talk a little bit about your sort of collecting journey, just in general, as far as like, are there things over the years that you've gravitated towards and formed sort of collections over? Like, what's your criteria for things that you want to keep?
I definitely went through phases of different things I like to collect. I have a lot of fun collecting because it turns it into a game, right? It's something for you to look for, to hunt for, to get excited about, to pine after, and then to feel really proud, like once you finally added that piece to your collection. So, as a kid, it started with simple things like I really did like collecting marbles and like cut stone shaped objects. I liked having like a little leather bag that I could like keep my little treasures in, and I liked the sound of them when they would shake. So I was always looking for things that had the right feeling to them to go into my collection. Then as I got older, it became I just really loved when eBay became much more of a tangible thing. Plus add to that, I started traveling a lot, so I liked collecting vintage posters from the different places I went. And one of my favorite ones that I kind of fell into was Chinese cigarette ads became one of my favorite ones. And then, I definitely would. I had a fairly decent Barbie collection between my sister and I'd say. I think I'm now on the hunt for some of those replacements to to try and feel like I still have that bit of my childhood. Um, but yeah, pretty much. And then, Lego sets became sort of unattainable for me when I was a little bit older because I didn't have the money to buy them, and I wasn't young enough for my family to justify like giving them to me as presents. They definitely felt it was like a kid's toy. So I think as an adult, that's become something that I'm like, hey, I have my own money now, so I get to spend it on whichever Lego set I want.
What's the biggest Lego
So
set you've
yeah.
put together?
Millennium Falcon,
That
I'd
big, massive
say.
release of
Not
it?
not the not
Not the
the
super
like
big.
biggest one, but like I want to say I don't know exactly which kit it was, but it was a fairly big one. I'm trying to think. I'm still in process on a Hogwarts castle. That one's pretty massive. Um,
And are you a fan of kits over just general, like, here's a bucket of Legos, build whatever you want?
oddly enough, I do like the kits. I get anxiety with just Lego. As a kid, I think I had a little more fun with it, and now I am too precise. And so I won't start something unless I know exactly what my full plan is. And I have trouble visualizing something with just the bare materials there. So like I just start to freak out and then I get that sort of decision paralysis. So I'm like, there's so many possibilities that I just can't,
Right.
I can't make anything. I'm not going to do it.
So does it help then when you're talking about being in productions that generally, you're given production art and design, like this is what you need to execute?
Yeah, it's something that I thrive on. Again, I'm like the keeper of the onset Bible where I have all of our reference because there's comfort in being able to check, like, okay, this is exactly what it needs to be, and this is exactly what it is. And like just being able to do that. Something that's been a learning curve for me. I mean, it's been 10 years now, so I should be used to it. But once I started working with Phil Tippett, um, he's a much looser style, and he always liked the freedom that he was given by George Lucas to like just make things. So he prides himself on like, oh, I collect talented people and then I get out of their way. Like I say I need this. Like he'll come to me, he's like, oh, I need you to make me a table for this scene. And I'm like, okay, what kind of table? Like how many legs? How big? Like how tall? Like is it an old table? Is it a new table? He's like, a table. And I'm like, so
Then you have table
it's
paralysis.
yeah, exactly. I used to freeze up a lot more. Now I know him, I know the world, I know pretty much what he wants. So I'm confident in my ability to just like, all right, I'm gonna make the thing I'm thinking of. And if I finish it and I hand it over and he tells me it's wrong for some reason, then I'll change whatever it is he needs, but this is the best I can do on the prompt I have. And I think I'm getting better at that, and he like is much happier with me being able to get less information and prompting first.
Do you think within the industry that there's sort of a level of perceived protection when you've executed something to be able to go, well, I did it to the artwork. There's the blueprint where they can't just go, what direction did you go? What was this thing?
Yeah.
If you just
Yeah,
went
actually,
freeform.
that's a very good point and probably speaks to a bunch of like just ingrained insecurities, right? Where I'm like, I you can't say I did it wrong because I did it just like this. And I know that I made all the right choices because I mimicked, like I know this exact color is right. I know this exact size is right. I know this style is right. So there's comfort in that. You can't really do it wrong unless you don't follow the instructions. And I'm very good at following the instructions.
So now if someone just came and said, just make a table without any other, like you didn't know the world, it's just make a table. Whatever table's in your mind right now, could you make a table? Would you make a table? I think is a
I
better
think,
question.
oh, there you go. I have to say because I'm happy for the growth I've had with Phil. I think that I am able to produce that table. I'm much more willing to be like, because really what it comes down to is it's Phil's attitude. I'm like, I need to censor this, I think, because Phil's words aren't always family friendly. So basically don't give a hoot what anybody else thinks. If they're asking you for something, they're asking you because of your skills, your mind, your creativity, your abilities. So whatever you give them is going to be right. There's no wrong answer. And that's the kind of thing that I'm still trying to I have to remind myself sometimes, but I have much more the ability to do it, to be like, all right, you want a table? I can think of some kind of table at least. I'll come up with something. I don't know if you'll like it. I don't know if I'll like it, but it'll be a table.
So the name of your second TED Talk is Making the Table.
Yeah, right. Actually, that's a really, really good. Actually, I have at one point I wrote out all of the ways I was trying to think of to describe my style, and the title of it was um, "Draw Me a Horse," because one of the things I have a problem with is, you know, I am somewhat creative and artistic and I can execute things, but really, maybe it's a deep fear of mine. I'm a master replicator. So it means that I need reference. If you came to me and said, draw me a horse, and gave me no reference, I'm probably going to end up with something that looks like it's on Gumby. It's just not gonna be right. And that like paralyzes me sometimes to
But
know
what is
that
the
I need so
definition of
much
right?
reference to get there.
Because there have been
Wow.
plenty of stylized horses, including Pokey in Gumby,
Yep.
which you can say
Yep.
is not an anatomically accurate horse, but you can look at it and go, that's a
Yep.
horse.
Yeah.
So
And
what is a horse?
I've actually heard from a few that's the title of the TED Talk. What is a horse? Exactly.
I mean, particularly
Exactly.
as an artist, you could pretty much point to anything if that's what you've decided in your execution. You could, you could point to something on your shelf right now and go horse. And if that's an artistic expression, well, now that's the artistic expression of a horse.
Right?
So
Yeah. I actually have friends who are artists who one time said something to me that blew my mind, totally blew my mind. I've been studying fine art since I was in the seventh grade. I went to a specialty school. And so I've been studying the art of art. And in my mind, for some reason, the definition of art has always been, can you paint or draw or create something that looks exactly like reality? And that's the definition of being a good artist. And it was
replication.
like my replication, again, back to replication. And my friend one time said, all the time people tell me, oh, your style's so cool. How did you come up with your artistic style? Your drawings look so exaggerated and neat. And he goes, what style? Like, did it ever occur to you like this is the best interpretation of how to draw that building and that person, that horse that I know? Like, that's just me trying to make a horse. And you look at it as a stylized, cool, artistic vision, and me, that's just the best I can do. And I'm like, oh, oh my gosh. I was like, oh, it's a whole new world. Oh, this is
Well,
exciting.
you'll never look at the painting saying this is not a pipe the same way again.
Yes, 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 right? Oh man, we just took a deep dive into like my artistic psyche here. This is great.
I told you it'd be a conversation. But why don't
Yeah,
we'll introduce your first selection, because I threw a curveball again, which is becoming a recurring
yeah,
theme in the show, where I did say that these had to be ranked from 5 to 1. So you're going to be
okay.
making judgment calls on your ranking now, somewhat on the fly for the items you've chosen.
Ooh,
So, and we know there's
yeah,
going to
I
be
feel like
honorable
I'm on the spot, but
mentions
also, yeah, yeah, yeah,
possible.
yeah.
So, no one's going
Um,
to walk away
it's
hopefully with hard feelings from the selections that you've made. So, what is your
I hope
number
none of
five
them are gonna
choice?
walk away at all.
Only if they're a horse.
Okay, let me grab this. Let me grab this. Um, so I have very differing sizes of objects here. This is the biggest one. Oh,
And the heaviest by the sound.
so oddly enough, this is an unfinished C3PO bust. Um, it was it's from Sideshow Collectibles. Um, and they had a series where they sent out a bunch of these with the head C3PO busts to different artists, and they had artists do their own, interpretation, decoration, what have you, and they were going to be displayed at a traveling,
So the
Star
gallery
Wars
show.
themed art show, and I think three of them were chosen to be displayed at Star Wars Celebration this last May in Anaheim. And so for my interpretation, I only used the head. So so I now am the proud owner of this unfinished C3PO bust that
But
is worth, I'm sure, a lot of money
in a
to
1-to-1 scale,
somebody.
it appears to be, right?
I think so. Does that look about right?
Yeah, I would think that an Anthony Daniels could fit in there.
Yeah, that's about an Anthony.
That's a unit of
So
measurement, right?
my
One Anthony.
yeah, yeah, one Anthony. Um, we actually did a whole build video for this on tested with Norm and I. Unfortunately, it seems like maybe Sideshow didn't get all the permissions necessary through Lucasfilm, so whether this video gets released is still TBD. Um, but we took the C3PO head, and Norm had the idea to make it be like a giant relic. So, a la Iron Giant, maybe, or Castle in the Sky. Basically, it was as if this was a giant robot that had been left behind hundreds of years ago, and now it's sort of part of the earth. So it's sitting inside a half a hillside. There's a little scaffolding we attach to it, so as if whatever creatures live on this planet are much smaller. And one of the eyes is hollowed out, and then we put in a like a glowing kind of campfire light back there, so it looks like somebody has climbed in there to take refuge from maybe the weather or something. Obviously, lots of flocking and greenery and rust and stuff going on. So that was a really
brilliant.
fun project to do. Yeah.
And so that was on display at
Yeah.
Celebration this past year?
It was. And of course, we get there, and the other two, I was thinking, like, oh man, ours is going to be probably, I mean, I don't want to be cocky, but ours is probably going to be the best. And we get there, and the other two are amazing. They were so good. One was covered in yarn, in colored yarn, and they made these crazy patterns that just kept like spiraling all over the place. I absolutely loved that one, especially because of all the color. And then the other one was from Hot Toys. Oh my God, they used like injection molded like crazy. So the innards, it was as if his head had opened up. So it's kind of like Men in Black. So like the face opened up, and there's like I think a little C3PO is like piloting the giant one. And every part of it, it was like, it was like they bought all those pieces because it was all injection molded. It was so professional. And I'm looking at ours, and I'm like, I put some flocking on it. But I was very happy that they chose ours to be displayed with those two amazing pieces of art.
And now you've got a souvenir of,
I know.
how many people have a 1-to-1 bust,
I
a
know.
headless bust? Now you got to build the head or a head to go on
I
it.
know. Well, that's the question, is what goes on here? How do I make the body look like? Eventually, this is going to be the thing that stares at me long enough, like unfinished, that I'll get there. I'll get a wild hair and do something with
You
it
get to
for sure.
decide anything on it. Doesn't just
Yeah,
any color, any execution.
yeah. I'm like, maybe I'll cover it in yarn like that other guy. It looks so good.
Or it's an extension, what colony has been set up inside of that portion of the,
Oh, there you go.
like it's
That's
a
actually pretty
companion
cool.
piece to
Yeah,
what you
make
did
it a
with the head
continuing. Yeah, yeah. Because
narrative.
I'll never get that head back. That's owned by Lucasfilm now, I believe, and I think it is still technically going to go on tour with some of the other things. I would like to know more about that. I should ask around.
I mean, talking about art projects for a head reminds me of the story that Frank Oz told about working with Jim Henson, and Jim just coming into the office one day and going, I need you to take your clothes off. There's a loose approximation of the story. And Frank just going sort of like a half beat, what? No, I need to take a quick photo. Just take your clothes off. And Frank's okay, and just go cover yourself, like lean over and cover yourself up. But I just need to take a quick photo. Okay, and then just sort of look to the camera like you're sort of shocked. Okay, took the photo, didn't think anything more of it. Jim went off to do the thing, and it got to like some time later, and it was, I think, maybe Frank's birthday, and he got a gift. And it was Bert, and it was Bert's head. And and he's like, okay, I got a gift from Jim, and this is okay. I performed Bert, sure, and it was all decorated with, I think, like other like Bert toys around it, like you could buy at the store, like little figurines and things, in like this display of Bert, but in the centerpiece was this actual Bert head. It's just sort of staring back at him, and then he noticed that there were no pupils in it. And so he examined it and he looked, and if you looked inside the Bert head, it was the photo of him.
No. side of Bert is just a naked Frank Oz. Oh, oh, that is amazing. That is... So what you're saying is I have to have a naked Anthony Daniels.
Yes, it's
Oh, that would be great.
that'll be the weirdest ask at the next celebration in London, right? Just Tony,
bear with
I
me.
need you
No,
to
nothing
just...
weird.
No, this is art. Did you read my book about drawing a horse?
I paid for the VIP photo package, okay?
Yeah, come on. It was a signing plus, is what it said. So
Hello.
yeah, this is the meet, now the greet. Come on. Don't worry, it's art.
Oh
He
gosh,
would
that
only
would
be insulted
amazing.
as if you put the photo inside an R2D2.
Oh, that's mean. Ooh, I would never do that.
But that is
All right, I'm
so
gonna
that
set
is
this.
hefty. Is that like polystone?
Yeah, I mean, I think it feels to me like it's a cast polyester resin, and there's definitely some. I think there's some fiberglass in parts of it as well.
I mean, that's a heck of a souvenir.
Yeah, right. It comes apart. There's a few different pieces here. So this is the neck ring, and then I think, yeah. So this comes off the base. You can kind of see what's cool about this is you actually get to see how it's all made and such, you know. Because these are all pieces that would have normally been used to create the very expensive collector figure
I
of
mean,
the
I think they
one
were
to one.
like vac metallized, weren't they? And like they did have a metal coat on the final versions of those.
Yeah, I think that they do. I have some of the eyepieces and they have like the gold chrome on them already. So it would make sense. Yeah, I and like I said, I think that they were charging a lot for these things. So
Oh yeah, I mean a
the
1-to-1
detail,
bust. I'm sure that it's
yeah,
probably pushing $1,000.
at least. Yeah, so it's pretty cool to like get to see some of these. And of course, this reminds me of another element in Star Wars that actually I'm gonna touch on in a little bit. But
Well,
it's funny
I'm
that
curious if
this
what I'm thinking of right now is what you're going to talk about shortly. So,
I don't
because it reminds
know.
me of something in
Uh-huh.
its star right now. So I guess we'll see shortly.
Yeah,
Well, that's a great number 5. I mean, now
right?
if that's the bottom spot, I
Well,
can't
yeah.
wait to see
Well,
what's to come. Do you want to kick right
let me
into
just
number 4?
sure. Let's see. All right, now I actually have to choose number 4. So from here on out, we're going to be living in the same kind of world. Basically, I have multiple figures from a set. I'm probably going to say, oh man, do you get this a lot? Do people, because collectors feel this love and affection for their items. And so
Yeah,
there's this
there's a lot of I
feeling
love
of
all my
like,
children equally, which is a
yeah,
lie. I
ranking my
mean,
children.
no parent has loved their children equally. There's
And
always been a favorite. It may be a
yeah,
margin that may be incredibly small, but there's always been a
yeah,
ranking.
yeah. Yeah, as the
But it's
mother of only
changeable. You
one
know, the one kid
child,
you
I will
love
say
this
it's
week could be
easy
the one that
now.
takes your car next week. Who knows?
There you go.
Yeah.
There you
Nothing's
go.
permanent, we'll say, in these rankings.
So let's see. So I have 1, 2, 3. All right. I'm gonna say
They're not judging you. It's fine.
this is
There's no
fun.
hurt
This is
feelings.
fun. 1, 2, 3. Okay. I think I know. I think I know what I'm gonna do here. Let's say it's Pretty Little Lady.
Oh.
So actually, I can grab her base as well. So this is part of the Dejaric hollow chess set, which is lives within the Star Wars universe. First
Speaking of Phil,
introduced in speaking of Phil, I think first introduced in A New Hope. You see them playing chess on the Millennium Falcon and the famous line of "Let the Wookiee win." And as that's going on, you see a bunch of these little figures jumping around and interacting. It's a stop motion animation, and there were 10 originally created characters. Only 8 of them made it into that film. Phil Tippett was again very loosely tasked with, just create 10 monsters. I don't know. And George came in, he picked the 8 he wanted, 2 got left aside, and those were in the movie. So this one, let's see, I looked it up because I know the names that Phil gave them all, which to me is the proper name because he's the creator of them.
And they were never mentioned in the films at all.
No. So this one's proper name is Grimtash. But we all know her as Violet. So, and interesting fact, I believe, yes, she's the only female hollow chess figure.
Now, were all of the original figures cast in the same color or painted in the same color?
No, each one is a different color. Or do you mean are they the same color as they were originally?
Oh no, in his original when he painted them, so they're all painted individual colors. Because obviously in the film we have the weird, holographic effect that distorts whatever,
and the green tinge on everything. So yeah, when I was actually working on recreating these for Solo, I was like painstakingly doing my color stuff, and everybody kept being like, "Remember, we're gonna put that stupid hologram filter on. It's gonna be green and glitchy, so we probably won't see it." But I'm a perfectionist, so I was very much like trying to get the paint job right. But yeah, so I have always really liked her. On the real puppet, it's pretty cool because like her snout is actually rubberized so that you can
it's also
get some animation there. Yeah, this is cast in resin, so it's completely hard. But on that one, her hands around here are also rubberized so that her fingers can move like that. And then there's rubber in her joints. But otherwise, interestingly, because some of the figures are not like this, she is mostly resin. In the real puppet is mostly resin as well.
Now, for reference to the original, did the original pieces still exist in the archives, or how were you able to recreate them?
They still existed in Dennis Muren's garage. So
it's always fun to learn how little regard creators have for creations when it comes to particularly things in the film industry.
I mean, the fact that they were saved at all means they had more regard for them than so much of the stuff that gets made. Although, as we know with Star Wars, they did try to hold on to a lot of things and create their own archives because they knew it was worth saving. But for the most part, in movies, you're lucky if anybody keeps it.
And certainly on A New Hope, that George was not as archival as he would become with the films after that.
Exactly. So they found these in Dennis Muren's garage between the use of photogrammetry and some of the original photos they had from when they were first sculpted. They were able to recreate and make some 3D prints of them because the ones that they had were just totally, I mean, almost all stop motion puppets are made using foam rubber, which deteriorates so bad. It just turns into dust. Basically, you touch it and it disintegrates.
Yeah, the toast effect.
Yeah, so a lot of the puppets were not usable, but they were there enough to get the form, the size, and
obviously the armature itself to get the proportions correct.
Exactly. Um, so we had enough information there.
Did Dennis have them
Um,
all, or did he have all?
he he had all eight, I believe. Then later we discovered the missing two in a photograph, and we're able to like recreate that on our own. But that one was not in his collection.
So is Phil also not terribly precious about keeping the stuff that he does, or is he?
Yeah, he's definitely not very sentimental. He does actually, I'll scratch that. He oddly enough is somewhat of a scrapbooker. He knows the importance of the process of the memories of preserving, the way it was made. So he has full like scrapbooks of each Star Wars movie he did, just with like photographs that he was taking and notes that they were given, script pages with notes written in them.
Like
Um,
a production diary, like a personal
yeah,
production diary.
Yeah. And so I was very impressed with that because I do that on so much of my jobs, but I don't always follow through with it. And the fact that these were like meticulously done, I was like very impressed. But as a whole, no, he's very much like not sentimental. And that's part of, the artistic slash utilitarian side of him. Any puppet that has, well, not her because she was a wire armature, but any puppet that has a real machined armature in it, that's just the skin over your tool. So like the minute you're done with that, you extract that armature out of that puppet. And if you feel like preserving it somewhat, he's had me do this a bunch. I will remove oh a machined armature, ball and socket armature from a puppet, and then I will create a wire armature, put it back in, seal the puppet up, and then like you will have that on display so that you didn't exactly kill it. But for the most part, it was just surgery. Like throw that one away. I'm taking the armature for something else.
Right. I mean, or there's, I mean, that, and there's certainly, it seems, with those who have skills to do these things, that there is the idea of, well, I'll just make another thing because this is just what I
Yeah.
do. You know,
Yeah.
like, the artists are not precious with their drawings. They're like, oh, you want
Yeah.
that thing I threw away? It's like, yeah, I can't do that thing. That thing's nice.
Yeah.
Oh, well, here's 10 more in the trash over here.
Oh, and I forgot to mention, so this is not one that I made. This is from Tom Spina with Regal Robot. Um, he reached out. He's worked with Phil before preserving some of the things from movies past. I think that he did a
A lot of the
rest.
production, the first designs that Phil did for a lot of these characters, right?
Yeah, and there like he did. I met him when he was doing a restoration on Vermithrax, possibly the dragon from Dragon Slayer,
Yeah, I
something
think it's
like
Dragon Slayer. Yeah.
that. And we became friends, and then he struck up a really nice relationship with Phil. So there's been other past projects that he's helped restore items on. And when he started up Regal Robot, he wanted to create a line of new Star Wars creations that people could collect and keep around. So he wanted to do a hollow chess set. And since I had become the de facto expert keeper of them, these are what we call my puppet babies. Um, he started consulting me on like, okay, what do we need for this, and this. Tippett provided him with like the photogrammetry 3D scans, and I provided him with some of the molds that I had made and used. So I was able to work with him on the production of some of these, but his extremely talented crew actually created these and painted them, and they're just gorgeous. These are as close as you can get to the real thing. And like, if you put this in front of me and the real one in front of me, the only reason I would know the real one would be because I could see all the flaws in it. Like, like this one's in better shape than the real one.
So do you have a full set of them? Would you have any?
I
Does
I do. That's pretty much that'll be me trying to go through some of my the rest of my favorites, I suppose, from this set. Although I do have a few curveballs to go with them as well.
Yeah,
I've got some
and
side
again,
by
there
side
are honorable
comparisons.
mentions. So
Yes, yes, it is. But I guess I can show you all the little ones that I'm sort of not gonna go into more detail about because they didn't make my full list. But you can see, so this one is what we call Mr. Greenbug. And his real name, I can't even say this. It's GHHHK. So
like geek, geek.
Gurk. Yeah, something. So so that's him. He's another one where the on the real puppet, the body is resin. It's a wire armature. Most of these are resin, and then just like the little feet are silicone and the little feelers are silicone so that they can animate. Um,
Now
then
on
I've
stuff like that,
got
if you had the option to have a production version of it, knowing that also those decay,
yeah.
what is your preference if you had the option between the two to walk away with?
If I had the option, I would definitely choose a production one because it's one that I've been more involved in the making of. I'm a very tactile person. So like it kind of kills me to touch some of these guys and be like, oh, they're supposed to be squishy. Like I know
You're
what
like
they're supposed
imposter.
to feel like. And and the cardinal sin that everyone does when you hold a stop motion puppet is you just automatically start moving the legs, right? Like every single person that I've ever shown a stop motion puppet to, you like pick it up and they just start almost involuntarily moving it, which you're not supposed to do because, especially on a wire armature, I mean, maybe on a really nice ball and socket armature, it's not going to matter so much, but on a wire armature, you only have so many bends in the life of that thing.
Before it snaps.
Um, before it snaps. And so it's sort of like, don't freaking touch it.
You've prematurely aged it. What are you doing?
Exactly, exactly. Not to mention, the silicone skin really starts to get buildup of people's like hands and stuff on the paint job and all of that. But yeah, I would totally pick a production one. I don't care if it's a case because by the time I die, it won't have totally turned to dust. It'll still be around, so I'll be happy with it until then.
Yeah, and you'll know that it's a proper one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
It's not,
Yeah. So this is Crouch. Um, let me see again what they call him. Hujix. This guy was cool. He's got sort of the thing I like about him is that actually his mouth makes more sense in this direction, but he's got an upside down kind of shaped mouth, and I think that's pretty cool. It's off-putting, and he's got a spiky tail that he like hits at people kind of
now
with
that
this.
now it since you've worked with him on a few projects now, and you can analyze his design sensibilities, it
Yeah,
seems like Phil is very keen to change up anatomy like that.
yeah,
Because you
yeah.
look at something like Max Rebo and the ongoing debate about the anatomy of Max Rebo seems now like a very Phil Tippett thing to do design wise, to go,
Yeah,
no, you think it's this, but it's really this because I want it to be unsettling and unique to you. Like I want you to look at
yeah,
this and it not feel like something terrestrial. This looks like an
yeah,
alien thing. And this is why,
yeah.
because this little thing is different than what you're expecting.
I think that that's one of his genius of his creativity is his ability to, it's not just think of something totally new before, it's that like you just have to alter something enough that it instantly like puts people off. Like I don't know, there's something about you look at a mouth like that and you're like, that's wrong.
Yeah, flip it over.
Like, yeah, it's so funny that that's all you had to do, and it makes it unsettling. And he definitely is always trying to create a little bit of a I'm trying to think of the word for it. It's like what's the word for ethereal but like dark? Like instead of like an upper ethereal, like a lower ethereal,
Right.
this sense of doom or uneasiness or just yeah, a creative monster, and That's what he does. He's so
Ethereal?
good at
Is
mock stories.
ethereal a little darker than ephemeral? Or what is?
Oh no, I said
You said
ethereal.
ethereal.
Yeah, yeah,
My brain went ephemeral, which is a wholly different word, not related to this.
yeah.
Um, but
But yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah, no,
whatever
it
that
definitely
is,
seems like it's a fog on at night. It's not a fog during the day. It's a fog at
yes,
night
yes,
that he's
yes,
creating.
yes. I like that. That's a great way to put it. Um,
Does
let's see.
he acknowledge that as part of his process, or it's just
I don't know. I've never actually like, sometimes he gets I've been with him in enough interviews over the last 10 years. Like people will come into the shop while we're working and just interview him off to the side. He doesn't love a lot of the deep dive questions into his creative process. I think because he doesn't think about it. And so it's not something he's so easily tapped into, and he doesn't really care to overanalyze it. So anytime people try to ask him more about that, he'll get flippant, or he'll just sort of change the subject, or he'll just say, I don't know. So I tried to take a cue from his reaction to other people, and I don't always cry with that. But watching him in some of his like processes, I've seen him do things like with Crouch. Here, I'll bring him back in. Is if he were to say the way the process on that might be is like, okay, I'm gonna give him a head sort of like an alligator, because you can kind of see some of that aspect to it, but
right?
that's just not. There's something that's not right about it. And look, his mouth like looks too smiley. So what if I just, okay, yeah, that's much better. Like that. Sometimes it's as simple as that. Other times maybe he's seen it, played out in his head already. But I think a lot of times he's just going like, how can I just change this to make it better?
Right. And he also has never struck me as a person who wants to be a personality on camera explaining process. He just wants to be doing the
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And
He's
having
like,
to talk about it is sort of like, oh, okay,
yeah,
I guess.
exactly. Usually we'll be making something and he's like, oh, I have to go to this interview. And he's like really mad. He goes to the interview and he comes back. He's like, oh, that's done. Like pretty much he would have been happier just sitting there making stuff the whole time
Yeah, or
instead
I
of
could have gotten
stopping for
this
an
scene
interview.
done if they hadn't
Yeah.
interrupted to film this
Yeah.
EPK material of us pretending to animate these things.
Exactly.
Yeah, all that seems
Yep.
like an intrusion to process anytime I've
Yeah,
seen him on camera over
exactly.
the years.
And that's changed too. I don't know if you've seen any of the older footage. He used to be a bit more bubbly and stuff. I think something happened like as he got older and he realized like, hey, the thing I like is just making the stuff. And the more I talk about it, the less I like it. So I don't have time for that anymore. I just want to do what I do. And I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, I can respect that. Uh, here are the last three that are not getting their own time to shine. So this
Please
is
please don't break
Worm.
them on camera.
I know, please. This is Worm. This is Star, and this is Spear. So they've all got. I was really blown away by Star because like that paint job is so incredibly accurate. Like that one got me. I was like, oh man, that is extremely realistic. And Worm, I'm just happy. His hands, all of them break all the time. So it's nice to have a worm whose hands aren't just like flopping around when you move it. Like that's pretty cool. This is better than the original.
Is that because of how thin the arms are that they just don't hold up to a lot
Yeah,
of posing?
bas basically it's a really weak armature style. Here, let me set these down so I don't break anybody, and then I can show you sort of how it's made. So this is one of the weakest yet easiest armature styles. So this is a wire armature. So imagine you've got probably doubled over and braided thicker armature wire doing this whole body part. But then when you get into all of these little hands, you need a finer gauge wire that basically it'll like wrap around the inner armature and then jut out to the side. And in some cases, there's two prongs for both hands to move. In this case, it's so small they don't actually get them. But the fact that it's just a fine gauge wire wrapped around a fat gauge wire, and maybe I've packed in as much epoxy in the middle as I can to hold it. But again, either that epoxy gives and then it like the whole thing starts to spin, or these little wires just plain snap. So
and then Ron
you're
Howard walks in and
guaranteed.
decides to start playing with it. Look, he's
Yep,
waving.
pretty much.
He's
Yeah.
waving. Look at
Oh, hi.
oh, it broke. You can fix this, right?
Yeah. The one like saving grace I had was that you can see the texture of the skin on this one. There's so many lines going on and even some side lines here that there's sort of infinite places that I can then cut back into the silicone, open it up for what we call puppet hospital. I can replace the limb with surgery and then close it back up, seal it back up, and then you hopefully won't see that seam line because of all this texture in here.
Which also
But
helps
so
that
that
they would have been hologramized in the film. So there's going to be a lot of lines there
exactly.
anyway.
I know. I
But
was
you'll
like always
notice, you'll
so
look and go, oh, that
overly,
was after
yeah,
the break.
yeah. I'm always trying very hard to hide all my seams when I'm sure you wouldn't have seen a single one, even if I didn't hide them. But I
Well,
like
now
them
we
to look
need
nice.
the YouTube compilation of Kayte's seam scenes where you point out. I can see it. Look, there's
Yes,
the seam. There's the
I can see
seam.
it. Yeah. I have done it a few times where I'll post a picture of a puppet after I've seamed it back up and I'll say, find it. Like, play the game, find my seam. And at least the last one I did, actually, it was I believe it was Spear's back. Um, somewhere I want to say it was like right around here. I made a really big, I had to like cut the whole thing open and spread him open. He was like flayed on the table. So I could
So back
really get
surgery.
in there. Yeah. And I was just so happy with the way that the seam turned out, like when I closed it back up, because I thought this is the last time I can cut this open. You only have, a finite number of times you can cut into the silicone and repatch it before you just lose your integrity, your structural integrity. So I didn't think I was gonna get another go out of it, but luckily it seamed up very nicely and nobody could find it.
Can you spot the seams in other people's work? Do you sometimes?
Usually, yeah. I
Is that
mean,
just
it's the kind of thing
instinctual?
it's the kind of thing I'm looking for, which is bad that somebody shows me something and I'm like, ooh, okay, how does this work? How did you get in there? How would you hide this?
Right.
And then but usually I'll find it and then I'll be impressed because I know I'm gonna find it somewhere, but it's just the matter of like how hard was it to find. And that's again just because I'm looking and it's a
Oh, I mean, it's
fellow
production
industry
grain. I mean,
person.
you've talked about
Yeah,
it with Adam before when it comes to when you look at an effect shot, you start breaking
yeah,
down. Well, what are the particular
exactly.
effects in this shot? Or
Yes,
as I've experienced, never go to like a mystery movie with a writer. You know,
yeah, yeah. I've
uh,
I've watched a whole lot of murder mysteries in my time, and so now I feel like I'm always the one trying to guess the outcome, like right at the beginning. I'm probably pretty annoying to watch a movie with.
I remember going to go see The Sixth Sense when it came out in theaters, and I was with Kirk Thatcher,
Oh,
who's Punk on the Bus, Star Trek,
hmm.
Muppet maestro, writer, director, amazing guy, just in Werewolf by Night, playing one of the monster hunters. But we were maybe a third of the way into the film, and he turns what? Oh, he's dead. What? Oh yeah, he's totally dead. What? Sitting through the other 2/3 of the film after that.
Oh, you're like, thanks for ruining that for me. Watch,
Yeah.
he heard from somebody else who'd seen it and he wanted to seem cool.
Oh, so he like was sitting on that. When's a good time? When's a good
Yeah,
time? Is this a good time?
yeah. Yeah.
if it's too soon, then I'll tip my hand. But if I wait till now, then it seems like I'm clever.
Hmm.
Nah,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah,
Did
that
that ruin it
was
for you?
well, but that yeah, because the entire film is built on really just that.
Yeah, that reveal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
at a time when we were still surprised by there being a gimmick of some kind of reveal.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so no, at that point, then you're just looking for affirmation of that theory.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
True.
that's why
True.
that's happening in that scene.
Yeah.
That's why he's not touching that in that scene, or that person isn't
Yeah.
directly talking to him. But God, Kirk, really?
Thanks a lot.
Don't go to movies with you anymore.
Yeah.
Because he'll also do he'll do the effects breakdown because he obviously started, at ILM back in the early 80s and working on Jedi and Star Trek 3. Yeah, is when he started doing effects, and then started working for Leonard on 4. But yeah, just it can become a little bit trying. It's like, what about magic? Can't you just let the magic exist for a little bit, Kirk? Jeez.
Let me have my suspension of disbelief.
Next to me saying the Muppets aren't real. Jeez, Kirk.
No.
I mean,
No.
yeah, right? Don't do it, Kirk. So did the two ones that didn't make it into New Hope, did they make it into the Solo scene? Were they used or?
They were. They were. And I think they'll be making an appearance shortly.
Okay.
Um,
So I think we
but
just did number
so that was
4.
4. So then I would say number 3, we're gonna do a side by side. So this is Hunk, as we affectionately call him. One of these I got in 2018 from I want to say it was called like 1999.co.jp. It was like a Japanese collectible site, and they made 2 Dejaric figures, and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So I ordered both of them, which was probably good because then they very quickly were discontinued. I think
Is they weren't
that's when
licensed?
yeah, I don't know if they weren't licensed or if Disney then was like, actually, we want to be the only ones that are selling them. Because then, a few years
Galaxy's
later,
Edge would have been gearing up.
yeah, yeah. And now they have them all on display there. But so this one is the one that I had bought in 2018, and this was not done using any specific information. This was sort of just as best as they could manage it. And then this is the one from Tom Spina Regal Robot, using actual scans of the real puppet and reference from Tippett Studio. So it's interesting because there's some elements about this one that feel more appealing. And I think that that's because they made it to be an effective like toy, whereas this one is like we're going to make it as accurate as possible.
It's
So
interesting
it's
the elements that
something
get
to say.
exaggerated between the two and emphasized.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing that struck me the most on this one was the eyes, because Hunk doesn't actually have any real eyes, whereas this one has some, like, you can even see them. They're like 3-dimensional and a little shiny. But Hunk just has these
Just
little
pits.
sockets. Yeah. And that's always been something I've noticed about him. So when I got this, I was like, ooh, he's looking at me.
Yeah.
Also, it felt like the mouth was kind of weird on this one. Much more of the like Oogie Boogie trash can type mouth, I'd say. Whereas the real one was a bit more, I don't know, derpy.
Yeah, he's got more the Japanese one looks much more like a Muppet sort of
Yeah, yeah,
creation, like a Henson sort of.
yeah. And what's actually really funny is if you could feel these, the Tom Spina one, I believe, is solid resin casting, so it's quite hefty. Whereas this one is so light, I feel like it's
Is
gonna
it
fly out of my
vinyl?
hands. It feels yes, I believe it's ABS plastic. And it's hollow. and it feels like a Happy Meal toy almost, you know.
Oh, can you imagine if we got a Jajaric Happy Meal?
Oh, I'd be buying up all those
Where is that for the
blue
adult Happy
boxes or
Meals?
whatever.
Why can't we get
Yeah, right?
complete your Jajaric set?
Exactly. Seriously, they would make so much money if they like tried to actually market towards what people wanted.
So now, now I would. So how well would they shrink down if you had to make them Happy Meal toy size?
Oh, that's a good question. The thing is, they're so detailed in their texture. I mean, you can see on this one just the amount of crazy texture going on. Obviously, he would probably be one of the easiest ones to shrink down because he's pretty simplistic. But like, how would you make a tiny violet? Like
Right.
those legs would just snap right off. And not to mention just like the crazy shape of it, I'm sure would be a nightmare for casting. So I bet that they would just pick their two stars. Usually that's what happens. You'll pick like the two most popular figures. Just
But
make it work.
that's not the full set. You got to go there for
No,
10
I
weeks,
know.
10 weeks of Happy Meals.
You know what you could do? You could sell a mini table, a mini hollow chest table that just had basically like little colored castings on top, just like little tiny things,
Well, now
and
I'm
make it be like you
curious
have the whole
because
set.
Hasbro's done the Dejaric set for the 3 3/4 figures.
Oh,
What's the fidelity on those compared to the actual
that's a good
figures?
question. I actually have not seen those ones.
Let me see, because they did the original release. They did a Chewbacca, a self-satisfied Chewbacca in his reclining hands behind his head pose as the action figure, uh with the table packed in and the pieces,
Oh my gosh.
in like a standard little bubble display like you'd buy for $10.
Really?
Let's see, Dejaric, it was Power of the Jedi, I think.
So
And then they
interesting.
repacked that when they did the big Millennium Falcon toy release in 2010. It comes with the
Ooh,
table in there and some of the pieces.
that's so cool.
Let's see there. Oh no, that's taking me down. I want Walmart.
I
I
have
want
a
just an image.
I have a little oh my gosh, no way.
So you can get
All
this
right, well
relatively
that's what I want for
inexpensively on
Christmas.
eBay. I think this is like maybe
Okay.
a $15 figure on eBay,
All right.
but it
Power
has.
of the Jedi.
Let me see if I can zoom in a bit. So it's got like the mid throw.
Perfect. Oh.
It's
Oh my God, I love it.
kind of a suggestive Chewbacca in package when he's not sitting in the little stool.
That's
but
awesome.
now, so now we need to get you that figure to do the actual
Yeah, I
comparison to see.
I'm about to add that to my Christmas wish list, right? Like
So
that's definitely what I
yeah,
want.
Power of the Jedi. So
Power of the Jedi. All right.
2001. That was the figure line in between Phantom Menace and Attack of the
Wow.
Clones. So there you
That's
go.
crazy.
Self-satisfied
Heck yeah.
Chewbacca with his chart table.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect.
But yeah, I would love to see the comparison to see how well, because they would have just
Yeah.
been, I'm assuming, going off of stills and photo reference as well.
Yeah, because they hadn't done any of this. They
And
hadn't
then
found
having to
anything
make
done in his
them,
garage yet.
what, maybe a half an inch tall on the
Yeah.
smaller one.
Now, you want to know one of my favorite realizations for where you can find this? It was a surprise. In If you have an iPhone, there's an app called Clips, and it's sort of it kind of is like Snapchat filters or whatever. Like it just puts you in different situations. And one of them, I want to say when Solo was coming out, they put out you could be on the Millennium Falcon. And so I did it, and or maybe it wasn't Solo because I feel like BB-8 is in there. So it was for one of them. But so you're on like the not the bridge, but wherever on the Millennium Falcon, and you can just like look around all behind you. And then I lost my mind because the hollow chess set was behind there and they were like being animated and like doing stuff. I was like, oh, my babies! Oh my gosh! It was awesome.
I mean, that's all the as far as 3D experiences, that's all I want. I don't need an
Yeah.
adventure in 3D. Let me sit on the Falcon. Maybe I talked to Norm about this too. Is like I just want a 3D experience just staring into hyperspace. Just the hyperspace
Yes.
effect. I don't need
Yeah.
anything else. Maybe you can change out what cockpit you're sitting in, but I just want
Yeah.
to be able to stare at that hyperspace effect.
Oh,
Like that seems
that
so
would be
soothing to me
awesome.
to just stare at
Yeah.
hyperspace. Like
That would
what
be
that seems
lovely.
like just easy money for
Yeah.
just put out the relaxation effects. You know, whatever the warp effect is for Star
Right?
Trek, any of that
Yep.
stuff. Just let me travel. Just let me sit back and relax and zone out
Oh.
to hyperspace travel.
All right. Put me down as your first customer once you like market this. I want to sit there too.
Yeah, right? Doesn't it sound
Just
like
space tourism, right?
yeah. Just let me look out a window. Let me just sit in. I mean, if you could watch Dejarik being played, if you could just sit there and watch the table, you do that,
Right?
right? Just sort of just I want to see the
Totally.
yeah.
I
Let
mean,
someone
because
else
I'll be
play. I
honest
don't
with
need to
you,
play.
I still don't know the rules.
I think it's passive. I don't know
Yeah.
how much of it is.
Mm.
I think it's a lot of button mashing and you hope for the
It's like
best.
is it like turtle racing where you're like, I'll call that one. I'm gonna bet on
Yeah,
that one to
yeah, it's like
win.
Mortal
Like
Kombat. You just keep mashing the buttons and hopes I guess something happens.
Oof.
And then even if
Well,
it's not well, not that thing or is that thing, you still say the Wookiee one. So either way,
oh,
you know the
exactly.
outcome of the match before you go in.
My
Uh
dad was so proud. He went and bought a "Let the Wookiee Win" T-shirt, because it had little outlines of the holochess figures on there, and he was like, "My daughter made these." I was like, "Oh, this is so sweet." Oh my God.
so do any pieces of the ones you made still exist? Like are those in an archive somewhere right now?
Yeah, actually, so Disney took possession of them. It's funny because they lived at Tippett for a long time, and then after um Rise of Skywalker, uh they finally did the Disney move and said, okay, these need to come back with us now because they're technically our property. And it's like weird because I think of them as Bill's property. Like they're his, he created them. He designed them, created them, recreated them. We've been making them and remaking them for the past few years, but it makes sense. So yeah, Disney has them proper, and I don't know if they're on display. I don't know if they're just in the archives. But hopefully they're happy wherever they are.
So the only ones that have actual Dejarik pieces right now are Disney and Dennis Murin in his garage.
Yeah. Well, if they let him keep those, maybe once they found out he had them, they took those
I
too.
mean, they would have been dating all the way back to pre-Disney, I mean, there's enough props floating out there that were actual
Oh
film
yeah.
props that if they could
Yeah.
have reclaimed those legally, they would have by now, but they just exist.
Yeah.
And come on,
I
they were
do
they were
have
like holding laundry down for it to dry. They were
I do have elements from the various puppet babies. So there were a few that I had to like cut out large chunks of silicone and then replace. And so like I have a set of vials of like basically little skin samples of each one or like whatever I had to pull off of one and replace. I kept like their little arm that came off or whatever. We had multiples of some of them, or at least, so that we could pull components off of. So wherever I could, I found little mementos to keep,
but
but
now
yeah,
you can
definitely
create an
nothing.
incredible Frankenpiece.
Yeah, I mean, I can clone them. I have their DNA now, so
That's how it works, right? It's
yeah, yeah,
they're already in the tubes. Just
I
I guess
got it. Yeah,
lightning
I'm
is it lightning?
preserving
Just wait
this.
for a lightning storm.
Yep. Full moon. I've got like my ritual all set up, ready to go.
I can think I know I bet Phil would attend.
Yeah, oh, yeah, for sure. He well, I was gonna say it's funny enough, for actually this is a good segue. For my next piece, it actually contained part of him in it. He used some of his beard hair as chest hair for Mr. Big. So again, we have a side by side of the Japanese. So this one I know the name of. It's the only one that I've memorized, and it's the Mantellian Savrip.
Which sounds like a
Um,
drink.
it rolls off the tongue, is what it does. And so yeah, one of these is the Japanese collectible, and one of them is the Tom Spina replica
So
of
I'm going to
the real
assume the
one.
one in your left hand is the Japanese release.
This one. Yeah.
Right. Yes.
Can you tell just because this one's so much lighter, right? Like this arm is like,
I was looking at it going, which one looks more toyetic?
Yep.
Like you were trying to be
Again, yeah,
impressive with it.
this is a really good pose. You'll notice some of the facial differences. Again, I always thought the minute this one came, I didn't have these yet. This was years away still, but I had just finished on the Puppet Babies for my first time around, and I got this in the mail, and I laughed because it was visibly different to me. That face has just such a different feel than the real guy does, which is it's extremely interesting.
It looks like he's got a
Um,
beard. Like if you made a beard with his, like
yeah,
this looks hairy
yeah,
in its
yeah.
texturing.
Whereas there's some real hair on his neck there. And then I don't know, actually, let me
Like I
take
can
this
imagine
moment
the
to,
Japanese release being in like Jabba's palace, like one of the Jabba's
yeah,
palace denizens.
right. Actually, this vest is permanent, so I can't see his chest, but on the real one, he has hair from Phil on his chest. So what's cool actually, so when I was fixing the real one of the last few times, I was needing to replace a bunch of his hair because it kept falling out. So I used some of the hair that had fallen out, and then I was like, you know what? I'm gonna make it full circle. So I took some of my red hair and put it in there as well. So the real one has bits of Phil's hair and bits of my hair, which I feel like,
So what you're
oh,
saying
now
is
it's like in there for eternity,
your hair now exists in the Disney archives.
pretty much. I've got a droid named after me. I've got one droid named after me, one droid named after my childhood cat, and I've created puppet babies, and I have my hair in them. So those are my claim to my Star Wars I don't know, reputation,
So
portfolio.
what gives you more excitement, seeing the physical objects still exist in the world, or the films themselves, the projects themselves?
Ooh, I mean, honestly, oh, that's a good question. For me personally, they've become so intertwined, that some of the reason I love watching the stuff is to look at the things that are in it. So I have a strange sort of love on both ends of it. You'll never get over, I mean, I can't speak to your origin story, but for me, it's like there's just no beating that childhood attachment you get to watching the films. Um, no matter how many times I see it. Actually, my mom was visiting recently on May the 4th, and so she said, "Should we watch Star Wars?" Sure. Um, and she went on to tell me, I knew that my parents had gone to see New Hope when it came out. I didn't know they went on opening night. They waited in line around the block, and that she was the one that insisted they go. And then as we were watching it, she'd be like, "Ooh, ooh, ooh, this is the part where the general who just got choked, he's about to drool. There's this big thing of like drool that comes out of his mouth. Just watch for it, just watch for it." And like I had never noticed that before. And the fact that she like remembered that, it kind of opens your eyes like, oh my God, this is so ingrained in all of my family.
And now to
It
know
never
that
stops
she
being
can sit
special.
down and watch your work in one of
Yeah,
those films.
right? It's it's really insane to me that it was something that my parents bonded over and loved when they were first dating, and that now I get to be like, hey, I'm a part of that.
And those are your grandkids.
Yeah. Puppet baby.
They never call.
Yeah. No. Get a card on Mother's Day.
Well,
One of the cool things about this guy is, so this is Mr. Big. That's what we call him. Other than his official name of Mantellian Savrip. Um, and I actually pulled the mold for this vest. The original vest was just like deteriorating, and could not be saved because it was made in latex. It was melting. And Phil said, well, why don't you just pull a new casting of it? And I said, I don't have the mold. And he goes, well, I have the lizard that I took a mold from that I then created the thing from. And I was like, what? Like I don't think I understand what you just said to me. And he walks me to the front of the studio, and there's these shelves that just have a bunch of kind of generic knickknack collectibles from past movies they've worked on, but also just like random weird sculptures. And there's a taxidermy iguana there. And he pulls it down, real iguana, and he goes, see here, see this part of his belly? And I was like, yeah. He's like, just brush on some silicone onto that, pull that off to make a mold, and then make castings from that. And that's how you make the vest. That gives you the scale that you want. And I was like, are you kidding me? And he was like, no, that's how we do it. And I just had the best day of my life, like painting silicone onto the belly of an iguana. I could not stop giggling. It felt like I'm getting paid to do this, and it's for Star Wars, and this is ridiculous, right? But I
40,
love it.
40 years later, you're
Yep,
painting this same iguana
yep.
who
This
has
iguana
a
has seen some
place
stuff, man.
who had a place in cinematic history
Yep.
that until now I had never heard the iguana story. So now we know.
Now we know.
Somewhere,
But yeah,
somewhere
so
right now, a writer is on Wikipedia updating the entry for Dejaric pieces, and its
nailed it.
vest was made from the pattern of an
Yep.
iguana kept
Yep.
by Phil Tippett.
Gathering dust in the on the unclean shelves at Tippett Studios. Yes.
Does the iguana have a name, or does it have a name now at least?
It doesn't. I guess I should have named it because Phil's not too sentimental in that way. I don't think he would have thought to name him. So I'll make that my job. I'll come up with a good name for the iguana.
Yeah, it's had such a place in history that
Yeah,
it needs
right?
a name and a photo. Take a photo the next
And a
time you're
fun.
in. We need a photo of the iguana.
Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, if anybody goes to my Instagram, there is an old post that I made, and it's just a video loop of me standing over an iguana, like laughing hysterically because I'm painting silicone on its stomach. So if you scroll through my Instagram, you'll find it.
Now we have context.
Yeah.
Before it was just, oh,
Uh,
Kate's got a weird post up today.
I know. I
The
was like, can you
biz.
believe
It's
that this
just the
is
biz. Have you become in any way jaded about any of the process or what you get to do?
Um, I would say I don't want to say jaded because it's all still incredibly special for me, and I value every single day that I go into work and everything I get to do. Um, but I've lost the maybe like the fangirl shine only because, when you work with Phil, like he doesn't like it so much when people, pull out all the fan stuff of like asking all the questions and getting excited about everything. So I early on learned to like tamp some of that down so that, it wasn't uncomfortable for him. I didn't want to just be like in his face. But then also it's more just okay, the real people made these things and they made them in the same way that I make things. And, there's something precious about it to other people and a bit to me, but it's different when you've been a part of the process. Like I think it's funny because I actually work with people who do make these things, but are still 100% like fans of things in a way that they like really want some of that stuff. And it's less about that for me. I have a friend actually who works at Tippett. He's amazingly talented. He could make anything from scratch that he wanted, but he's so much a collector and a fan that he'll come in and be like, look, I've got a casting from the original Edward Scissorhands knife thing. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I think sometimes, you expect other people to share the like freak out moment. But to me, I'm thinking, well, it was a prop that they made out of real materials and then they used these techniques and then they made a casting of it. And that's something that I'm around a lot. So I'm less precious about that kind of a thing. But I actually am envious because I think he has more fun. Like it's more special. Like there's just that much more to get excited about. And I like it. And it's true. It's cool that sometimes he really does have things that I go, oh my gosh. Actually one of the collectors that I've befriended actually found out that I really liked Return to Oz. That's like one of my go-to diehard fandom things. And so he actually made me a replica of the Oz key necklace that she wears in the movie. And that was one of those moments that I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. So every now and then you get hit by something that you're just excited about. Or Adam gave me a casting. Adam gave me a casting of the cartoon gun from Roger Rabbit with the dum dum bullets, and like that was pretty cool. I
I
still have
mean,
to paint
speaking
it
of
up, but
fanboying, Adam is like the
yeah,
top
yeah,
when it comes to
yeah.
Adam
But
has,
I
in the best possible way, no chill when it comes to when he's
think,
enthusiastic about something.
right? Yeah. But in the same respect, though, it's a little different for him because I would say I relate more to Adam because I don't think he's as again precious about the thing needing to have been screen used or whatever. Like he sees something that he really likes, and then what does he do? He recreates it himself. That's the kind of thing I can get more on board with, where I'm as into this particular topic as I can be. But again, Adam is like me. He has made things for these movies before, so he knows that there's nothing all that different about this one piece than something that we could make. And then he gets more joy out of than just turning around and making it himself as well.
Right.
There's more of a experience to that, right? You're like, I can't be any more in this prop than I am right now. And
Well,
that's pretty
and you can
cool.
get lost in the weeds in trying to
Yeah.
authenticate props and what screen used means. Also, what screen accurate means, because it may not be the
Yeah.
same prop from scene to scene.
Yeah.
Or, as we mentioned, sometimes when you're looking at those Dejaric pieces, it's what
Hmm.
you emotionally think the prop should look like as
Yep.
opposed to what it actually
Yep.
does. Like you can look at some props and go, "Oh, that looks like crap. That
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
unimpressive."
Yeah.
I could have done that. I don't want that.
Yeah.
I want something that looks heroic and wonderful.
Well, so I did a project with a collector who is very much into The Shining and owns one of the original axes from The Shining. So what he wanted was he had a replica of Jack Nicholson made, like a sort of a mannequin, but
As
with
you
like a
do.
really realistic mask. Yeah, like the face was amazing. Um, but it couldn't hold the weight of the real axe because the axe he had was a real axe that they bought for the film, as opposed to like a prop one that was made. And so he said, what I want is an exact replica of my axe made, but light, so that my mannequin can hold it. So then my friend made a mold of this, gave me the casting, and then I was in charge of painting this thing to look exactly like the original, including all the wood grain in the handle, the rest on the blade, all of those imperfections. But what was interesting is I then went to Mopop, and on display, the Museum of Pop Culture in Seattle, on display, they were like, this is the axe from The Shining. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, well, one, it's not, because I'm working with that one. Two, it looked terrible. It was like a plastic prop that somebody had painted. And I was like, what the heck? I thought that I was working with the axe, and the axe looks so different. And then I talked to the collector, and he's like, well, there were like 40 axes, and some of them were just for holding and running around with. Some of them were for hitting stuff with. So there's like all manner of different props basically left over. This is just one of them, and it so happens to be, and in my opinion, the better one because it was a real axe. I heard he said that they actually just went out and bought like some standard like fireman's axes, and that's what they were using for that. But yeah, it's crazy. Then, and I've seen a lot of people get in arguments on the internet to be like, "Oh, that can't be the original because this is the original," and then usually somebody chimes in and is like, "Yeah, there were 40 axes."
Yeah. This is how movies are made. There are a lot of these things
Yeah,
for different
yeah,
reasons, for different scenes.
exactly. Yeah,
Sometimes they just lose things.
yeah, right. You
Do,
always have to buy extras because you don't know.
yeah. I mean, do you think Indy has the same pistol all through those films?
Right.
No.
Exactly. Yeah, there's only one hat and one whip.
Yeah, I have his shirt. I have Indy's shirt. He wore it in all 3 films. I have his shirt.
Yep.
I have suspicions about who your client was based on what you said, but
they've asked to remain anonymous, but we can confer later and see.
Yeah. Based on the display. But
yeah.
So I think we're down to, is this your number 2 or did I lose your track? Is your number 2?
No, that was Mr. Big was number 2.
So now you're number 1. Was it difficult to arrive ranking wise at what would be your number 1 for today?
Actually, I think I had the number 1 picked out first. It was more a matter of how to fill in the in-betweens. But again, this is actually a double for me. These are the most special ones I have because I did in fact make these ones. And they are signed by Phil and John. So Phil Tippett and John Berg, who were the original animators. And they're also signed by me and my friend Ken Chung, who created these. So these are the lost hollow chess pieces. They don't have official names because they weren't official until Solo, and I don't know if anybody gave them names since, but this is Bulbous and this is Scrimp. I don't know if I'm taking credit. So this one, our friend Nikita actually was the one who discovered the missing ones. She was looking at photos, and she worked at Tippett, and she goes, what are these 2 figures? And he's like, what do you mean? These are the hollow chess ones. And she's like, yeah, but there's 10 figures in this picture and there were only 8. So what are these 2? And like, it was the sort of realization of like, oh, right. There were 2 others. And then that brought us down this whole road of reconstructing them. And we made these originally as Kickstarter rewards for Mad God, the film that I've been working with Phil on. And then they were super into the idea of putting them into Solo because Solo is a prequel. So the idea is in Solo, they're playing the game, they pound the table out of frustration, and these 2 holograms flicker out. And so the idea is for continuity that they broke and they just don't exist anymore once you see them again in A New Hope. So
well, it wouldn't be a board game if you didn't lose pieces.
Cool. Right, exactly. Somebody's gonna get mad. And I also have, as comparison, I have the two lost ones as recreated by Tom Spina. Um, which again, they're pretty close. The only thing is, Phil has a love for a dark umber wash. Like it's pretty much how we did everything on Mad God. Is it wasn't finished until you just covered it in
You saying that's his
basically
signature wash?
yeah, muddy water basically. And so when we were making the castings for those and I was painting them up, he came in one day, he like took scrimp out of my hand. So this is pretty much how they looked before. Took scrimp out of my hand, took a massive cup of this umber wash and just fully submerged. And then like brought it up, it's dripping black, and he goes, "Okay, now it's done." And I was like, "I don't know if that's how they looked." And he was like, "Well, I'm the one who made them, didn't I? Like, if I say this is how they look, then that's
he
how I
won the
want them to
argument, I
look."
guess.
And I'm like, "You're right. All right." So then I changed my painting technique for all the rest of them. But this is if you wanted them cleaned up, this is how they look
So if you
in
want
all
them
of the
authentic
reference.
in Tippett style, you buy those and then you dunk them.
100%. Yeah.
And
If you can
an
bring
umber
yourself to
wash.
do it, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so anyone who owns them right now, get a
Yeah. A
Dunkin'.
raw umber wash.
So is that the case with
Yeah.
all the pieces that they did?
Um, is what the case say.
That they're all sort of a clean look and don't have that wash to them?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one that stands out to me, I would almost all of them look pretty spot on. This guy, Spear, which I took his staff out of his hands because I didn't want it to fall out. The coloring was a bit different on this one, on the puppet that I was with, a lot more orange and brown, whereas this is a lot creamier of a color. It is, to be fair, I think it's a bit warmer in person. It might be showing up a little brighter on camera, but if I had to say any of them looked a little different, I'd say this one and Crouch probably. I think Phil got to them possibly, or maybe it was just age, but they were a bit darker in person, maybe with some of that wash on them.
Phil got to them with his
Yeah, Phil
wash.
got to him. You can't leave him alone with
Why
anything.
is there not a Phil Tippett signature wash available on the market?
Right. I mean, I know the formula, so I can recreate it for anybody.
That should have been another reward for the backers. Is just
Oh
get
yeah.
a jug of
A
because you're gonna
lifetime
need a
supply, a
jug.
drum. A drum.
What's the life on
Don't to
wash?
yourself.
How long does wash last? Just evaporation issues,
Ooh,
right?
yeah, pretty much. You're gonna get super, super heavy sediment at the bottom. All your darkest color will settle right down there.
Yeah. Oh, that's the
Yeah,
nighttime fog we were talking about, right?
exactly.
So, talking about a little bit about that process and what was it like sort of working with Phil on sort of his magnum opus lifelong sort of project with Mad God?
It was the single greatest, job event experience of my life, honestly. It it was so fantastic. One, because I got to create a relationship with him that I hope is going to last the rest of my life. Like he's just a phenomenal person who is fantastic to spend time with. I think that a lot of people see him as the gruff, grumpy guy. On the one hand, he kind of is, but I also like that.
Also, generally, when
I'm
they're talking to him, it's about topics that eventually will get him a little grumpy about
yeah,
things. So,
right. Tell me about how your life was ruined when they changed to CG for Jurassic
yeah,
Park.
let's
And he's
talk
like,
dinosaurs.
yeah. So yeah, there's an element of him that's gruff, but I actually really respect people that are like, look, I just don't have time for pleasantries, or like I'm not going to pretend to be excited about something I'm not. So, I respect him for that. But honestly, he's super thoughtful and kind and sweet underneath too. When I had my house fire, he like called me to make sure I was doing okay. He gave me new furniture for my workshop so that I had a table to work on so I could keep working. Not even for him, just in general. Not like, here's a table, keep working for me. Um, but no, he's just a great person to be around. And then on the creative side of things, I touched on it before, but basically he really helped me expand my creativity, or my process, maybe I should say, so that I can tap into things a little bit easier, not be as scared to just get started, and just make something. And then, yeah, it really, the film itself has been such a communal effort. I've been with him for 10 years. It's been going on for, I think, 30 years. And the people that I've met on this project, and the fact that everybody who worked on it was just working on it because they wanted to. Nobody was getting paid to be there. Nobody, had to put in a certain amount of time. Most of the people were finishing their day jobs and then coming like right in, or spending their whole Saturdays there. And the amount of times you would see someone who, they even work at Tippett as their day job, and then they finish, and then their way of like relaxing or unwinding is like, okay, I'm going to go over to the stage now. Now I'm going to go work it on Mad God and spend like 5 hours like at night just working on stuff, because it's everybody who worked on it just wanted to be there and wanted to be a part of it. And they're so talented. Just the amount of people that converged with such massive talent, especially I've been blown away by Dan Wool, who did the score for it. He's so good. The score haunts me. It's going to be like my theme song for the rest of my life, I'm sure. And they actually just recently came out with a vinyl of the score, and I've done my pre-order. I think it should be shipping out this month. I'm very excited for it.
Hopefully before Halloween.
I know, it seems like they really missed an opportunity if they didn't get it out in time.
Is it
Well,
weird to
we'll see.
think that it's done?
You know, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, because it's been such a constant. I've never worked on a job this long before in my life. All my jobs are like 3, 4 months. Maybe I've been at the same company for a few years, but never the same company, the same job for 10 years. Um, I'm sad, like, I'll miss some of the regular things, and spending all that time with the people, but also like I don't I still don't call it done either, because Mad God, this is a weird cliche, weird like thing to say, but it was like more of a state of mind. If that makes any sense. It wasn't so much, it was never about the finished product, I think, to a lot of us that were working on it, because we worked on it for so long without having a finished product. That part almost became irrelevant. It was like we're constantly just working in the process, and okay, what do we do next? What do we do next? What do we do next? Um, so I don't think of it as done, because Phil's still got so much inside of him, and I think that there are other projects that he's gonna want to do that are like Mad God. So to me, it hasn't ended. We're just in like a weird pause phase.
See, so it was more of a
And
communal experience than
oh yeah,
project specific. Like you were in a bowling league. You you were
yeah,
all in, and the
yeah,
bowling league was the project.
exactly. We all got together. We like, shoot the shoot together. um, just hang out and share our stories and our skills, and all have fun doing stuff together. It was really fantastic.
What is the one piece in that movie that you did that you're most proud of or most sort of sticks with you?
Um, I would say, okay, well, so I did so much on that. But I've got two things that stand out. One is there is the I don't know if this is gonna make sense to anybody who hasn't seen it because it's all such a
All
weird
the more
concept.
incentive
But
for them to
there's
go see it.
yes. Oh, or if you have Shutter, it's on Shutter, the streaming service. Um, so there's a character called the Alchemist, and he looks like a plague doctor, and he has a lair, and it is this crazy stone interior tower with a winding staircase that comes down. And while everything for that movie was quite small, because most of it was about 1/6 scale, we changed scale a lot, but 1/6 was the most common, um, which means that basically you would have, everything is the size of like a GI Joe kind of, if that translates to anybody. This set needed to be much bigger than that because we were going to be using some life-size actors and just shoving a bunch of stuff into there. So I built his lair about 8 feet tall, and like surrounding like a tower. It had to be, had to have breakaway walls for filming, and it had this winding staircase, and all of it was this like crazy cutout foam that was meant to look like bricks, and we had to treat it with acetone so it melted. Horribly toxic. So that one was a lot of fun to make, and I was pretty proud of it because it was so big. And we still kept part of it. So when you go onto the stage at Tippett, like you see it like kind of hanging up very close to the life size Ed 209. So I feel some pride there. But the most fun was another again, this is so weird if you haven't seen it. The Alchemist has pet mealworms. These little pet, like we call them like Teletubbies, that live in a terrarium. And so then at one point you just like enter into the terrarium world. So you go from this very dark, rusty, bloody, whatever the opposite of ethereal is, world, and you go into a UV day glow glitter filled Teletubby world. And that was like, I got to paint like almost everything for that world, and I loved it. I was spending hours in the dark with the black light on so that I could check some of my paint because the paint performs differently than normal paint does. So like I had to have the black light on to make sure that it was like coming out the way I wanted to. So I spent all this time in the dark, just black lights on, painting crazy psychedelic patterns on like weird aquarium decorations. Like we were buying all these like underwater reeds and some, oddly enough, I remember doing a lot of fake vegetables. I don't even know where those came from, but I was painting like carrots and asparagus and stuff and
Are you sure all
broccoli.
of this happened? You were under blacklight for a long time.
You know, all of Mad God is kind of a fever dream, and if you see it, you'll understand it doesn't get any clearer looking at it after the fact. So who knows? But that was a lot of fun. And we did actually have real mealworms involved in some of the filming of that. And I was also the mealworm wrangler for it, which at first grossed me out, but then I got used to it. That was cool.
Because you remember what a Dayglow sort of wonderful world they lived in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then they get eaten by these little Teletubbies, and then the Teletubbies get eaten by some spiders. So
Well, I mean, that's just a
it
circle
all
of
it all
life. I
works
mean, that's
out.
all
Yeah,
understandable. It's
yeah. It
nature. You
wouldn't it
can't.
wouldn't be Mad God without that.
Well, everyone should definitely go seek out Mad God.
Yes. Oh, and actually, since the season, also on Shutter, if you've heard of a Yule log before, where you just like put on the video of the fireplace going, the Tippett has created a ghoul log, and so it's a jack-o'-lantern, it's a pumpkin, and it's actually within the world of Mad God. So you put this on for an hour in the background for your spooky season, and you'll see little Mad God creatures come and go, and it's pretty good time.
I mean, I want that. No, I get to see that
Yeah,
until while we're
yeah.
waiting for the Dejaric table that we can just turn
Ah,
on and watch.
yeah. exactly.
So if you were given that project, if you're like, why don't we, Phil, why don't we pitch Lucasfilm on let's just doing like a VR Dejarik table animation that cycles?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be great. We did a little foray into some VR stuff with Mad God, actually. They called it OMG because we a lot of times we'll refer to Mad God as MG, so it's OMG. And you can like walk around inside the Mad God world with your VR goggles on, and it's terrifying. It's awesome. Um, but so yeah, this seems like
Is
the
the
logical
Teletubby
next
world
step. I'm like,
included in
we did
that, or we
that.
don't get to walk around
Oh
in that?
no, I wish. Okay, that's number one on my request list. Sorry. I'll do that one, then I'll do the Jarek set,
Fair
okay?
enough. Let them know that'll be the upgrade for the next. You have to do that
Yeah,
addition. That'll be the
yeah.
bonus
You get
VR.
round two. Yeah.
So what else are you working on? Like what's coming up, or what can you talk about?
So there's two things I just did that I can't talk about yet. Um, there's dang. Ah, there's a couple of things. Basically, if you like Star Wars and you follow the things that they release uh periodically on TV, then maybe you'll see something that I've worked on, but it'll still be quite a ways away. So we'll see. We'll see. Um yeah, I've got a couple of movies and TV shows that I can't talk about. I'm currently working on I'm trying to get into animatronics.
Oh,
So, my friend and my friend is a crazy robotics genius, who actually went to school for like bio robotics. So basically making Luke Skywalker hands, you know? Um, so I've teamed up with them and we are currently working on a short film for somebody else that they've commissioned us to build this like drive-through robot. So it's as if when you go to a drive-through and you roll down your window and you order from the like microphone and then you go forward. Well, imagine in the future you just roll down your window and the thing that you order from is also like the thing where the food comes out. It's basically like a food rehydrator. It's like if Wally could create food.
it was like if Wally was a pizza oven.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So that's what we're getting to do right now. It's insane. It's ridiculous. It's like scary because robotics is so different. And I'm still not any good with electronics or anything like that. So I'm more of like the fabrication end of this. But we have a collective that we're part of called MK Ultra. And we just make like weird, cool, artistic pieces of, hopefully involving some bits of technology, but I usually end up doing the artistic side of things.
Also, very good collective name.
Yeah, thank you. They're Mel, I'm Kate. So I was like, hey, yeah, Mel and Kate, MK Ultra. Yeah. And
Uh,
we're into weird psychedelic government
yeah,
experiments,
yeah.
so
Check out the
go with it.
Teletubby VR experience coming soon.
Yes, from MK Ultra. Perfect.
I mean,
Perfect.
it sounds like what you would get from MK
Yeah.
Ultra is the so I've asked people in the past sort of like, what collectible that hasn't been produced, if they had the ability to say, make
Ooh.
this, what would you
I
want?
know. K8PO.
The
It
droid that
is a
your
droid that's named
namesake.
after me. Yes, I would love to have a figure of K8PO. That's the one I've been waiting
So is
for.
it a
I had really
protocol
high
droid?
hopes. Yeah.
It
And
almost
it's
seems like you also have the chest piece for a protocol droid in your
I,
possession right now.
exactly when we were doing that art piece, actually, I was like, what if because K8PO is actually silver and blue. And I was like, what if instead of gold we make it like silver and blue? So it's just a slight nod to mine. But since we ended up doing the relic thing, we didn't go with that. Plus, one of the most telltale signs is on the chest plate itself. There's a stripe that goes down the side. So it probably wouldn't have been, recognizable. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, that's a good idea to paint this up with now.
Or
There's no head,
combine both of
but
those things. Is now that's the relic of this giant version, because as you said, the telltale piece is the stripe.
yeah, that's
So
true.
you can accomplish all those things in realizing this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
Oh,
but
that would be
Hasbro, if you're
awesome.
listening, we need that droid as an action figure.
K8PO. Also, it's not, for some reason it's not in my visual encyclopedia of Star Wars that I've checked, but there is a droid called R4C4, and I would like a toy of that. That one's named after my childhood cat, so please
See,
get on that.
and the good thing is they make a duo. You got an
Oh
R2
yeah,
unit and a
yeah.
protocol droid.
There you go. Yeah, we work perfect together. I remember at first I was a little envious because I wish I was the droid. Uh but uh, I think I'm happy. I actually K8PO had a bigger role in an episode of Clone Wars. Um so that's why they get called out. So I should be happy with
Well, as someone who has not been named in Star Wars, then I
that.
I think you're doing okay.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So, but you could also, I mean, I would hope get a model kit or 3D print. You could
Yeah.
paint up. I'm surprised you haven't paint. Do you get overwhelmed with the things that you could do in the
Yeah.
hours in the day?
Pretty much. And it's sort of what I've alluded to before, where I just get this paralysis to where
Do you
I
have to be
need
assigned a task to make it really happen?
pretty much. I have a lot of things that are just sitting around waiting to be done. See the C3PO bust there. Um, and I have a whole bunch of upstairs in my shop I use just for keeping model kits, and there's so many of them that are not built. I don't know why I keep buying them. I buy them because they're fun, and I think about, oh, wouldn't it be fun to do this? And then I never build them because I build like real models for things for my work. So then I'm like, oh, I don't want to deal with that right now.
What's been the
Yeah,
longest standing thing in your head that you like, I really want to build that, but you keep putting it off? And it doesn't have to be a model kit. It could just be
yeah,
some project in your
yeah.
head that's just forever been bubbling up there.
I've always wanted to build a dollhouse of my house. But the thing that stops me is again, I get overwhelmed by needing to be too precise. So like the thing that kills me about dollhouses, like a traditional dollhouse, is, just the back would be missing. And I'm like, well, that's a whole wall. And maybe that wall is integral because maybe, like my kitchen sink is on that wall. So then how would I show my kitchen? So then I get too detailed where I go, okay, it's gonna be a top-down view and it'll have to be in multiple levels then, like, and it'll be, more like a diorama at that point. I'm like, wait, but what about the ceiling? The ceiling is so pivotal in my living room because it's got this. And
How are
so
they going to cool
I,
without the fan?
yeah, there's no airflow in here, okay?
Yeah,
And the lights aren't there. This is terrible for reading.
it's going to encourage
Um,
mold. It's not.
So I basically just get so caught up in the idea of how I would do it that I just don't get to it. And I wish I would.
What
But
is, I mean, because you talk about
yeah.
having an entire picture of a thing in your head
hmm
before able, could you ever envision doing a project like that where you just did like a wall at a time?
Uh again, I get the thing that like I instantly get frozen with anxiety is I'm like, but what if this room I do it this way and then later I change my mind. I'm way too neurotic for this. I am like too detail oriented. So it's amazing I've ever completed anything in my life, if
But you
I'm
did
honest with
eventually
you.
build that table. So
I
you did.
did, yeah. I did build a table. Yeah, that is in Mad God. Go look at my table. That's what a table looks like.
So one point in the house you're going to build, the dollhouse, there just needs to be a
Yeah.
table with a horse sitting at it.
Oh,
However
perfect. That's
you
all
want,
it is.
you want to
Yeah.
interpret it.
I'm gonna have Pokey sitting at a 3-legged table.
and a naked photo of Phil Tippett looking towards the camera,
Oh my god.
going, just make the table.
Just make the table already. Yeah, pretty much.
All sorted. Well,
Yeah,
before
you've nailed it.
are there any honorable mentions before we go?
Actually, I was just trying to think. I had. Oh, here. The only other figures I have were gifted to me after my house fire. My friend wanted to make sure that I still had some elements of Star Wars and fun around. So, oh no, I dropped the gun. So I have my Ponda Baba. Oops, yeah.
Was this the Cantina Showdown, the Power of the Force?
Yes, pretty
2?
much. So I've got these two little guys that sit over on my shelf. And the gun, I dropped it. I still have it. I promise. I didn't lose it. I have it.
Did it fix the value? No. When you display things, do you keep in mind sort of the placement and sort of your diorama aspect of display? Do you have themed ways that you display things?
For the most part, I mean, you can kind of see some of the ways that I go about it.
Are those more mementos from projects behind? Because I still see the real steel containers behind you.
Yeah, those are my real steel. I did a series of creepy Halloween craft videos for Tested, so that's what some of these jars are, and they're full of like bugs and X-rays. I also did a thing for Tested where I did a wall of hands that like you can basically make molds and casts of your hands, and then I had these all bolted into a board around you, so it looked like they were coming out at your head. So these are all just plaster casts of my hands. More Tested videos on water effects back there. Some creepy old Shining-esque photos that I found at a garage sale, and then all of my random jars of teeth and eyeballs and bloody fingers.
For recipes.
Yeah, what I like to do is, whatever pieces I'm choosing to display at the time, I'll put them where my heart tells me. And then, periodically as I walk by, I'll take notice. And if I feel the need for a change, I'll move them around a little bit. Or I'll put some away and put up something else in its place. Because there's not really a need or a lack of things to show. I have a lot of stuff all around.
I don't know what that's like.
No. And actually, I have a bunch of relics from jobs I've worked on that aren't in my shop because it can be a little too chaotic in here as far as dust and debris and sunlight. So some of those I keep in my house.
Little more protected.
Yeah. I have my bits of the tumbler and parts of the train. I have a leaf spring from the train and
your parts of the one true
from,
tumbler. Yeah.
Yes. Parts from Inception. I have like a whole lead casted like pillar that the train crashed through that they were throwing away that I took out of the dumpster. It's very unhealthy. I shouldn't have saved
Did you make your own replica of the Shining axe?
You know what? Actually, I have my test piece right here. Let me grab it. So we made a half casting that I could test my paint job on. And so this was me doing a bunch of my paint tests.
And now, so what is the actual material that's made out of?
So this is just resin. So they made the mold and then they just cast half of it up so that I had something to play with. And you can see I did my larger color test on the back where I was choosing which metal to use and making sure that this was an okay base for my
because when you show it to me like that, I'm like, grain. Oh, that's wood. That's
no, this is resin.
See that.
But thank you.
Well, again, it makes my non-skill makes me appreciate even more the incredible talent that you have.
Oh, thank you.
But we'll talk about that in just a second because I do have some things before we get. I usually share recent acquisitions uh
Ooh.
at the end of the show. One of which I really couldn't hold because it's too big, and it's sitting on top of that AT-AT behind me. It is the Naboo Royal Starship playset that
Oh,
Hasbro put
whoa.
out in 1999, and I'm going to regret this. So I thought, well, the ship's too big to show it off. I'll just show off the box. But the box is also way too big to show off. So I can't even see what I'm holding up right now.
Oh my gosh.
But it is an incredible, like, I think what they've said is this is basically larger, certainly in width, than like even the super big Millennium Falcon that they put out a few years ago.
Really?
You can see, but
Now it says electronic on it. What does it do?
so it has the basic sounds as you would expect.
Okay.
Um, but it has a battle capability using infrared. So it comes with a vulture droid on a handle, and I have no batteries in it right now, but you fire this and it fires the infrared. And after you hit the ship, I think like 3 times, it blows panels off the ship. You can see in the
No. That is cool. That is
which I have
so
never seen them
cool.
do something like that before. Like usually it's like a button activated to blow
Yeah.
a ship apart in the things that they've done before, or like the speeder bike, the classic speeder bike, where it just sort of disintegrates when you press the
Yeah.
pack on the back. But it is an involved playset. But it
Totally.
has sort of a silver paint finish on it.
Uh-huh.
And I think it was stored with some heat, so there's some run that has happened, or I guess the silver coat
Oh.
has sort of run, so it looks like corrosion that
Yeah.
has come off the side. So it I look at it now as like the well, if I had more skill, I
Yeah.
would pull a tested, I think is the official term for it.
Ooh, I haven't heard that.
Yeah, anytime you look at something and go, it could be better. Let's do it.
CBB.
I think
Yeah.
that's pulling a tested. But I was thinking of because I
Now,
saw what they did with the Razor Crest, but
uh-huh.
also what they did with the Mandalorian helmet, which considering this is
Yeah.
supposed to be like a chrome ship, it would be perfect for.
You gonna use some of that Molotov? That's his favorite crumb.
I maybe I should corral uh whoever wants to join, or I'll just force Norm to do it. Uh to give me a real-time tutorial
Yeah.
on how to execute it. So we can go, no, you didn't know. No, you just send it.
So where do you fall on the spectrum then? I'm guessing you're more open to altering the collectibles.
you know, I think it depends on the initial condition of it. Like the
Yeah.
fact that it has a little bit of damage to it right now makes me a little bit less precious
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Um, but I didn't get these things for value. They are just because I like seeing it. So I
Yeah.
think that the thing that's stopping me is not feeling I have the skill level to do it effectively. So I'd hate to do it and
Sure.
ruin it to where like
Right.
that just looks awful. Why didn't you just not do that? Is the
Yeah.
greater fear I have in tackling something like that than anything like, well, this is gonna the resale value is going through the floor. No one wants this. If it looked cool,
Yeah.
then ultimately I think that's the bigger thing with it. And I can blame Norm for getting me fully immersed in the 3D printing. He knows what he did. So I've showed this off before, is the Jabba that I printed.
Oh,
from a mold
Cool.
from a model that the wonderful chap at Mighty Jabba's Collection, which is, if you've ever seen, have you seen that channel before?
I haven't.
His life-size print of Jabba is incredible to see
Life
using this
size.
model. So it's been impossible to find a modern Jabba in 3 3/4 scale. So I decided to try printing it out, but now I'm faced with the idea that I don't really know how to paint this. So I'm
There's
stuck
your
in that.
problem.
Speaking of creative paralysis, is
Yep.
I don't want to stare at this forever, but I feel at some point I'm gonna have to tackle like doing him
Yeah.
properly.
So I can't see. So was this a 3D print you said, or was it casting?
So this is 3D PLA.
Okay. And does it have any print lines on it?
There, I printed at a super high resolution, so they're very, very faint. If you can maybe see, oh, you know what? Let me
Yeah,
see
I
if I
can't
can,
quite focus.
if I can
Because that's
try and.
always my biggest thing is
Oh,
like
that was wrong.
you never just you never just paint a 3D print. There's so much cleanup involved first, usually on my part.
I mean, it is super, super fine.
Wow, that's great.
So if you can see that. I mean, I've cleaned up all the supports that were on it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so it
Oh, he's
feels
just
ready
testing.
to do. But
Yeah,
so let me know
yeah.
when you want to teach me how to to paint a Jabba the Hutt. I'll
I mean,
send you a
you
print.
know what, you can do. Like first off, just to get your feet wet, is pick a random green or yellow base color that you want it to be, and just spray them. Spray the whole thing that color, because
And just
that's like the best. That's the best thing you can
so
do
he
to
doesn't
just
look
get
like such
started.
a blank template.
Yeah. First of all, it'll help you see all his detail better, and it'll spark you because it'll be like, "Ooh, well, that wasn't so hard. Maybe now I can do a little bit here." Basically just start with the most basic thing,
So I'll
and at
accept
least
your
it won't be
Jabba
white.
challenge if
Yeah.
you could tell me what base coat you would recommend.
Oh. I'm looking at your figure behind you right now. Would you
Yeah,
say you like the coloring on that one?
so
Is that
this
pretty
is
color
a
accurate?
pretty screen accurate Java,
Yeah.
and
So
it's got
I
that
would
sort of fade of
definitely
beige and green.
see, I'm tempted. Okay, what I'm like getting details here now. I'm like, how much experience do you have with airbrushing? Zero. Okay. It's like, the general rule is you start light and then you add dark. So like my gut is to say do the yellowy creamy color and then
Right.
add the green. But really, if you could airbrush, it actually would be better to go green and then use an airbrush and go in and do the lighter parts of the belly afterwards.
What's great, I can just
Um
have him talk for me while we're and and he can show all kinds. He can look kind of sad. He can look kind of happy.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Oh, that's too good.
So and certainly no. If you can recommend what spray
Yeah.
color,
Okay.
I will do a base color. Set him over. This is going to be over there for right now.
There you
But you talked about being task oriented. I will throw a challenge down to you,
go.
so you
Ooh.
can say that it's something that is external. Is
Right.
that either through a figure or a model kit, you paint up your protocol droid in your protocol droid colors before the end of the
Ooh.
year.
For the end of the year. I can do that. This job ends in sometime in November, so I should be able to have time for that.
Because
I'm a
there's
new mom, so there's
yeah,
always something taking up my time.
but you also
But
know that your schedule's all over the place.
yeah, exactly. I like that challenge. Okay, here, let me ask you. Can you recommend a figure for me to alter? Like, what's your go-to? Are all protocol droids basically C-3PO? Like if I got a
Yes. The
C-3PO figure?
general base is going to be a 3PO body. You're in
Okay.
luck as far as ease of getting one right now, because they just re-released the Black Series figure
Oh,
in their archive series, which means that he's cheaper even than a regular Black Series figure. So I'm trying to pull them out right now. There is
oh,
there we
perfect.
go. So this is a 1/12 scale, right? Is that right?
Right.
6 inch scale. Well, so that's 1/12, right?
Okay, yeah, yeah.
Uh, he's got the articulation,
Wow.
but
Yeah, he's great.
as far as, so it's not a tiny 3 3/4 scale to try and customize.
Right.
It gives
No,
you a
that
little
would be
more play
perfect.
area, but
Yeah, and I see something that size too, and it like instantly makes me feel a little bit better. I'm like, okay, that's manageable. I can get that done.
yeah, it's not
Yeah.
trying to print up a life size or paint up a life size one. This seems like a good hobby size.
No, it does exactly. I actually like this challenge. I think I would love to try and try and actually accomplish that.
Because your shelf deserves your
Right?
3PO, your protocol droid up on the shelf. I had
Yeah.
to move the Hot
My
Toys
Kate
Leia
APO.
to be able to get to that. So now I just need to lay her on the desk.
Oh my gosh. Look at
Fantastic
her.
figure.
Seriously. Gosh, the painting on her face. We did a video where we tried to to do figure face painting, and we did a whole series of like, okay, progressively changing something each time we do it. And I learned very quickly it's just not, there's such a fine skill involved in that where like I'm a pretty good painter, but it was hard. It was very hard to
So,
get a good face.
I mean, as you know, if you're looking at, because it certainly seems like the high water mark is generally the work that Hot Toys does. Is there anything that you can point to as a thing that really is what nails what makes what they do different?
So one of the things that I learned when I was trying it, and Norm was the one who explained it to me, is the way that you layer your skin tone is so important. Because of the fact that like I don't know, maybe because you said you don't have any paint experience, this would be more how you would think of it is like you look at somebody's skin tone, you're like, okay, that is this one shade of color.
But skin is
Um,
translucent
but
to
skin
an
is
extent.
translucent and skin has blood under the surface. It has flushing happening in places. It has a bit of the blue blood as well as the pink and the red. And having to go in first and sort of lay down those irregular color spots first, then covering them with more of a general tone, then adding your highlights, then adding your shadows. It's incredibly complex, even in a way that's different than, say, a hand would be. There's just so much more going on in the face. So I truly, truly have respect for people that do like that to nail the figure face painting. That's just beyond awesome.
Yeah, it's remarkable any time that I see it.
Yeah.
But uh I can't wait to see your protocol droid, because
Yeah. I mean,
your shelf
it
needs
does.
your protocol droid.
It does. And if I do it well enough and I'm happy with it, I'll probably go then in search of a replacement head and I'll make this whole big one be a KAPO.
I can't imagine that there aren't 3D models out there of a protocol droid
Yeah,
head that people
yeah,
have STL files readily available for.
exactly. And Tested has a giant 3D printer that I'm sure I could use.
So good. So now it's turned into an assignment.
Yep.
So we're gonna, by the end of the year, hopefully we'll see an Instagram post
Oh, yes.
of the
Yes,
protocol
for
droid.
sure.
So speaking of, so where should people find you online? What do you?
Yeah, so my handles on Twitter, Instagram, and even my website, it's all just my name, which is spelled incredibly unusually. So on Twitter and Instagram, I'm at Kayte Sabicer, KayteSabicer. And then also my website is just my name, katesabicer.com, and you can see some of the past movies I've worked on. You can see me laughing hysterically at an iguana.
Now with
Any number of
context.
things. Yeah, now with context. I actually did a number of posts after, I don't know if it was after Last Jedi or if it was after Solo, but I went through and did an introduction of each of my puppet babies by name and calling them out, so you can see some of that of the, if you're into the holochess, the Jarek figures, you can see some of that. Otherwise, there's actually a lot of Mad God content on there as well.
And this would be the screen versions of the Jarek pieces, right? The ones that are
Yeah,
now
those are the
in an
real ones. I
archive
was taking
somewhere.
pictures. Yeah, I was taking pictures of the actual puppets as I worked on them.
Well, it's incredible work. Everyone should check out all that, all the videos that you've done with Tested. I really have appreciated you being on the show. I hope it's been a fun journey. Hasn't been.
Oh yeah. No, you can see I've been miserable this whole time.
Well, I made you choose. I made you rank them, and
Yeah,
now they're going to judge you for the rest of the night.
I know. My puppet babies are gonna come to life and whack me over the head with their resin hammers.
I mean, now I kind of want to see that stop motion film. It's just a bunch of collectibles coming to life and judging their
Pretty
owner
much, right?
for a perceived lack of appreciation.
One of the closest I can think of, if you've ever seen Dolls, that's a really good campy Halloween movie that I actually like because only the people who deserve to get killed.
Finally,
Yeah,
there aren't enough
yeah, no
Halloween
innocent.
movies like that. Before I go, I want to, because I don't want to forget this, that I have a book coming out that people should please get. I would definitely appreciate that, which is The Art of DuckTales, which is a nice hardcover book on the 2017 DuckTales that was lovingly crafted. Hundreds of interviews with the crew and the cast from Dark Horse Books. This is the standard edition. People can get this, sure. This is a fantastic book if this is what you can get. But if you're able to, I highly recommend, oh, this is going to be heavy, the deluxe edition, because it is packed with, there's the deluxe edition.
Ooh.
And it has not only the standard edition of the book, so you don't miss on that, but with gilded edges, because it's fancy
Ooh.
now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll flip through real quick. Oh, look at all that. Look at all this art and interviews with folks like David Tennant and Lin-Manuel Miranda, all the wonderful cast on the show and the creators, but also this bonus of all of the extended interviews and artwork
Whoa.
that are not in the standard edition, that's only in the deluxe edition. And prop wise, you also get a reproduction of Scrooge's number one dime,
Aww.
cast in metal.
Then-
Although you could take this in any material and make it look like this,
Yeah,
right?
I
Yeah,
I mean, I
that
don't
is
want to
the.
brag. I don't want to brag.
It's not a brag if it's true. And then so everyone can find out about that at bit.ly/DuckTalesBook, all lowercase. But I'm not doing conventions, and I thought I was going to be doing conventions this year, but the world. So I had art prints that I had made up celebrating the 75th anniversary of Scrooge, the 35th of the original DuckTales, and the 5th anniversary of the new DuckTales, which act as a book plate because they'll be signed, and people can go to bit.ly/duckart to find out how to get one of these before they're all gone. And yeah, and then patreon.com/Ken Plume. That would be swell if people want to support all the things, or subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is what people say, right? Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe.
Something about a bell. I don't know. There's a bell there or something. But thank you, Kate, for doing this. I appreciate it immensely. And we
Oh, of
should do
course.
something fun again sometime in the future.
yeah, I had an immense amount of fun here, and I worry that the more I talk with you, the more I'm gonna want to collect. So that's a good and a bad thing at once, I think.
You know what? No judgment.
Nope,
You
nope.
have some open space on those shelves back there. You
Not
so
once I put all these figures back in.
hopefully when next we talk, this thing will have at least a base coat, and we'll see a protocol
Ooh.
droid sitting behind you. So thanks everyone. Thanks, Kate. Bye.